Hello everyone, it's Richard back. This video is going to be about reviewing how I'm doing compared to Percata and Deducter, and we'll look at the core composition. Then I want to look at Deducter's manual to talk more detail about what changes he made and why he made them. Lots of interesting stuff in there when I was reviewing it, and it's kind of maybe changing my perspective on some things. So let's just get into this. So here's the prestige tracker across scenarios. You can see every single scenario I'm just doing better than him. And Bricata's prestige gains are exploding. But that's because he's playing at Rommel, not double Rommel. Pardon me. Alright, I'm back. So you can see at this point, he's got what 8 times as much prestige as me, or close, and that's gonna continue to be a problem as we go through the scenarios, and that's okay. It's just a fun little thing to track. But what's more important is how I'm doing compared to him, Deductor. And you can see that I've done a better job managing my prestige so far, and he hasn't even sniffed getting this like 1100 over 1,000 prestige. He hasn't even come close to doing that yet. If you look at core composition in 1940, you can see Bricata's running ahead. In fact, if we go back to 39, come on, 39. I left you guys at Warsaw, and we can see what happened. This is Oslo. You could see we're like really close at Warsaw. I know this is Spoils of War. You can see we're really close to each other in terms of units. And then Oslo, Bricata starts taking off. You can see I have a very steady increase in unit purchases. And Deductor is like very slow, but it's below the number of units I purchased. And things start getting big at Oslo and even bigger at Lillehammer. And that's just because Bricata went on a shopping spree and said, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to buy that. And I'm going to upgrade this. And he has so much prestige that if you go look at the prestige situation, at Lillehammer he has 4,000 prestige. So he can spend all of his money doing these upgrades and purchases. And he was doing that to build the second division of his corps. And he's going to level off at this point. And at some point it'll go higher, but I don't remember when. You can see he's 50% more units than Deductor, and I'm barely ahead of Deductor. But I have more prestige than him. And I start to get more ahead of Deductor. Spoils of War, I have 2 more units. We go into 1940. You can see I'm now 4 units ahead of Deductor at Oslo, 6 units ahead of Deductor at Lillehammer, and 8 units ahead at... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. At Abonimal, I'm 4 ahead. I'm 6 ahead at Albert Canal, and I'm 8 ahead at The Hague. And you can also see Bricata's leveled off with the 2nd Division, and I'm catching up very quickly. And I will probably surpass him maybe at Stone. The good thing about comparing the 3 of us is all 3 of us are taking the French path, so it'll be very comparable. If we look at what was happening with the corps, with my corps, I got a lot of infantry, and then I got a little bit more. And artillery, I maxed out artillery at Warsaw. There's not huge changes, mostly just infantry, I think. And you can see I have a lot of 7.5 centimeter guns. Bricata's running ahead of me with 10 infantry. That will change at some point. And then we get into 1940, 9 infantry, and then I went down in infantry because I sold my SE here. I no longer have an SE. And then I went up because I bought a bridge engineer. So that's what my infantry looks like. I've almost caught up to him. He's ahead of me there. Tanks, I finally caught up to him. You can see at the start of 1940 I have 2, Mercado has 6, Deducter has 4, then I get 4, and then I get 6. And so now I've caught up to him. His composition is historical, and that's why it looks funny. Mine is just, I want Panzer IVs and Panzer IIIs. They're better than the 38T and the Panzer I and Panzer II. And I'm not playing it with an historical core, so it's okay. You know, when you're playing with severe prestige restrictions, you need to maximize what units you're buying, and you don't want to be messing around with weak units. And anti-tank is different. He's exploded on the anti-tank front. I will buy a Panzerjäger. I'll get into why later, but I realize I do have an incentive to buy one. So that gap won't be huge. I'll have 2 and he'll have 3, and that's really just, I think it's just a little flavor he's adding to his core, and I'm going to be tighter about anti-tank. I'm still ahead of him on 88s. Both of them still have one more tactical bomber. It's a fighter bomber that they both bought. I am ahead of both of them on strategic bombers. And in Deductor's case, he doesn't have the prestige to afford these things. And I would also point out that he made strategic bombers a lot more expensive in the final release of his mod than in the version he's playing with. In fact, I noticed quite a few of his units were cheaper. Like artillery, for instance, I think he had the Stug as like 327 prestige or something like that. And the Storm Panzer was like 300 something prestige. And in the latest version, the Storm Panzer is 498 and the Stug 2A is like 527 or so. So he buys a Stug in 1940, but I don't know if he would have been able to do so with it being way more expensive. I would love to have one. I don't have the prestige for it. So I'm going to rely on my 10.5 centimeter guns. And they are definitely good enough to get you through 1940. And any other differences, I'm ahead of both of them on the artillery front. I don't think he's bought the Stug yet, but I'll have to confirm that. He did upgrade to a 15.5, and Bracada has a 15.5. I can't afford to upgrade my artillery, so I'm lagging behind them in terms of high quality artillery. But the good news is it's 1940, and I don't think you, strictly speaking, need it. So things are balancing out, though. I'm almost caught up to Bracada on infantry. I've caught up to him on tanks. I'm ahead of him on artillery. At one point, I'll buy a Panzerjäger, and so he'll just have one more anti-tank. I'm ahead of him on anti-aircraft. He's ahead of me with a tactical bomber, but I think that's not a big deal. I'm way ahead of both of them on strategic bombers, and everybody seems to have caught up on fighters. So there was a convergence there, and I have caught up to Bracada with scouts. And Deductor doesn't have the prestige to buy another scout, so I will probably be buying at least one more, possibly 2 more units next scenario. But I need to look at my prestige situation to figure that out. By the way, I've played all the way through The Hague with no elite replacements or overstrengthening. Bracada has played with a little bit of both, as has Deductor. So I've kind of proven you can get a decisive victory and actually do pretty well without doing that at all. And I think people are way too quick to jump on using overstrengthening and elite replacements. And I think so far I've proven pretty successfully that even through The Hague, you still don't need it. We'll see what shape I'm in after Sedan. So I'm very pleased with how this is going, and there's an interesting convergence happening on the core composition. So despite the fact that I'm not playing with an historic core, I suspect by the time I get to 1941, the differences between Bracada's core and mine are not going to be huge. I think at most it'll be a few differences in the airplane area that doesn't mean much practically, I don't think. And there might be some differences in tanks, not necessarily in numbers, but in types of tanks. And maybe the composition of infantry will be different. But I have a feeling they're not going to be too different. What I'm shooting for through 1940 is I want 2 regular infantry, 2 paratroopers, 1 mountain troop, 2 pioneers, 2 grenadiers, a cavalry, and I bought a bridge engineer, and I want a motorcade. And I think that means I'll have 11 infantry units, and then I don't have to buy anymore. Everything else is upgrading. So I'm not there yet. I still need to buy, I think I need to buy 2 more regular infantry. Some of these guys are all going to get switched around. I have to upgrade them to the appropriate infantry type, which is a cost that I assumed would have to happen at some point. And I'm probably going to do it in 1940 because the experience hit is much less. But not yet. I'm still in early 1940. Next thing I wanted to go on to real quick. It says for bridge engineers, you should be able to use them to cross minor and major rivers. And if you watched my Hague playthrough, I tried to do that and it didn't work. And I wished if you could make a comment to this video about how bridge engineers work on minor rivers, that would be great. I'm not really sure. It limits the potential of bridge engineers if they only can be used on major rivers. So I did that, and then I wanted to go through Deducter's PDF of his manual on the mod that he made. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. We're not going to go through all of it. So I'm going to read this out and talk about it. Grand Campaign Unit Revisions revises the equipment and rules files for Panzer Corps Grand Campaign, also known as the DLCs. Almost every single unit in the game has been adjusted. This mod is designed to find a balance between gameplay and historical accuracy in order to make the Grand Campaigns a more challenging and realistic simulation of the German perspective of the Second World War. Major features. Almost every unit has been adjusted for historical accuracy and gameplay balance. Almost every unit has more distinctive strengths and weaknesses. That's a big deal. I've kind of been highlighting that as I've been playing through the Grand Campaign. Many more German units are now viable to keep in the player's corps. That's something else I'm trying to highlight. Experienced infantry are significantly better than green infantry. You can see sometimes I get attacked out on an open space and units won't do any damage. Or a rugged defense happens with an inexperienced unit and it doesn't do any damage to my units. That's the experience factor hitting. He's basically saying get experienced infantry. Infantry is less fragile in 1943 to 45. So I think in the original game, a tank would show up and blast your infantry, and it was just over. The reality is, infantry at this point that were experienced were deadly, and they did have more anti-tank equipment and heavy mortar fire and other things like that when they were in combat. It's a lot harder to kill the infantry than it appears when you look at the base game. And I think he ups the infantry stats on everybody, including all the allied infantry. German infantry is still going to be better, but it's still going to be hard to fight on the Eastern Front, but you don't have to worry as much about getting steamrolled. Well, on the infantry front. We'll talk about tanks later. Medium tanks and tank destroyers are much more useful. He basically is moving the stats around and changing some things. It's a little ahistorical from time to time, but he wants to do that because he wants the player to actually use. He wants these players to use these different tanks that we normally ignore. I don't know if I'm going to buy a Panzer IIIN, which is this specialized urban warfare tank. Maybe. I'm really worried about the experience hits that are going to nail my tanks later in the war. I don't know if I can afford to have another green tank. We'll see. But maybe I will let one of my tanks be a Panzer IIIN, and we'll get into that later, but it's an urban warfare tank. So we'll talk about that later. Advanced weapons such as the Tiger tank and ME-262 are still very powerful, but now no longer save prestige. What that basically means is, one, they're expensive. There are stat caps he's putting on them, like movement and fuel and ammo. to reflect mechanical reliability and what they actually did in the war. And people were using these kinds of weapons to not take damage. And he's changing the stats around to kind of say, well, let's not get too greedy. Let's get real. There was damage done to these units. Certain units, such as the Panzer IV, are reduced in price in 43 and 44 to reflect increased German armament production. I wonder if that affects elite replacement costs. That I don't know. But I will have Panzer IVs in 43. I don't know if I'm going to have Panzer IVs in 44. I think that you're playing with fire at that point. I will try to get rid of my Panzer IIIs in 43, with the possible exception of maybe keeping a Panzer IIIN. There's a tougher Red Army, especially 43 through 45. Tougher American and British forces, especially air units. That makes sense. We know that the Western Front was dominated by American air power. And, you know, the reality is you could build up your elite German fighters, but there's going to be an overwhelming number of air units. Battles in 43 through 45 are significantly more challenging, but should feel more historically accurate. So it shouldn't be so easy to just overstrengthen your units and blast through hordes of Russian armor. You're going to have to be smarter tactically and strategically. Both core choice and battlefield tactics are vital to success for all years of the war. The player is rewarded for using a balanced core of infantry, armor, artillery, and air units. However, the player will have more options within each unit family to build his core. It should not be immediately obvious which unit is the best choice. Rather, each unit has its strengths and weaknesses. The pace of the growth of the player's core strength is also slower. I think this is brilliant. I think this makes a lot of sense historically. I think it teaches maturity and patience on the player's part. And having a lot more flexibility in what kind of units to deploy is a really big deal. And I'm interested in exploring that with artillery and anti-tank weapons later. Because of the lower average core strength, tactical skill is much more important in 1943 and beyond. The successful player will pay close attention to terrain and the type of and quality of enemy forces encountered. It is also assumed that he is familiar with all game mechanics such as mass attack and retreat surrender rules. I would point out the game is a lot more challenging even in 1939, and I think it gets steadily more challenging basically each year. I have to be a lot smarter about deployment. Sometimes killing things is harder because defense stats have been raised on a lot of units. You actually see my frustration from time to time when playing my scenarios. I can't kill a unit. It's partly because he raised the defensive stats. And we're in 1940. You can imagine the chaos and mayhem of trying to kill things in 1943. The difficulty the Grand Campaigns increases moderately in 39 through 42 and significantly in 43 through 45. However, a player who considers himself average will still have ample resources on general difficulty. An expert player can play at a higher difficulty for an appropriate challenge. The best way to understand any changes made in this mod is to check the stats of a unit before purchasing it, or the stats of an enemy unit before engaging it. Use Alt plus click frequently. All constructive feedback, yeah. Installation, this is to install. There's a softcore option that doesn't hurt you as much with the experience hits when you upgrade out of class. Glossary of terms. A is all-terrain. Rate of fire. This is something I don't really understand, and I wish someone would explain to me. Tracked, wheeled. Okay, fort killer equals heart attack. This is interesting. If you have fort killer status, your heart attack plus 5 versus forts. This is why we're going to see this with the infantry. Why pioneers are so deadly against forts. They have a higher heart attack, I believe, than any other infantry, and they get plus 5. It's sickening. But pioneers were used to take out forts. It kind of makes sense that when you use them to attack a fort, you should be destroying them. Minesweeper. Ming is ignores entrenchment when attacking. That would be a pioneer. Bang functions as a bridge engineer. Oh. That would be bridge engineer. Okay. No purchase. This prevents a player and AI from buying this unit, but does not affect any pre-placed units. MP and multi-purpose. Like an 88 gun will have MP next to it. Limited. He will sometimes limit how many of a unit you can buy. Overstrength equals unit has plus 5 base strength. Star denotes a unit family that is not obvious. Ah, yeah. There's going to be unit families that don't actually make sense, but we'll explain later why he did it that way. The scale of units, you're in command of a German Panzer Corps. A unit is the smallest subformation within the Corps that can be issued direct orders. The Panzer 4D and the Panzer 5E are two different units. A unit family is a series of upgradable units. The Panzer IV and Panther are two different unit families. A unit class is composed of unit families with similar characteristics and is the broadest unit category. Infantry and tanks are two different unit classes. An infantry unit approximates a regiment. Certain specialized units, like combat engineers, are instead assumed to be battalion size, because such infantry have greater combat prowess than the numbers alone suggest. Any other ground unit approximates a battalion. Some units, like the towed anti-tank guns or self-propelled anti-aircraft guns, were historically never organized into battalions, but keep in mind this is an approximation. The player has access to air support from a Luftwaffe Geschwader. Each air unit approximates a Staffel and a group. Okay, that must be the German technical labeling. Thus, this game simulates operational level warfare in which the player issues orders to regiments or battalions. The primary unit design principles. Combined arms tactics is critical to success. The player should be rewarded for maintaining a balance between the various unit classes: infantry, armor, artillery, and air. A core composition that severely neglects any of the above unit classes should be suboptimal. Yes, so if you play with this mod, you tend to get punished more if you're not thinking like a true. So this is a weird point I'm going to make. So I'm not playing with an historic core the way Picata is, but I kind of get coerced into doing it anyway because it could be disastrous not to make an historic core. And that's what's kind of cool about the mod. I don't necessarily have to go out of my way to look up the intimate details of an historic core to play the grand campaign, because later on you're going to find if you don't have a balanced core, getting decisive victories is really hard. And I think you're going to see, I'm doing extreme core compositions in 1939 and 1940, but they will get less extreme over time. And it will be closer to Picata's core than it looks like right now. 1939 and 1940 and most of 41 is like the playground phase where I'm building up an entire core and I'm going to use all kinds of weird core compositions to get decisive victories. Part of that's because of my severe prestige restriction. Part of that is I think some of these maps in the early war years have a lot more flexibility and creativity with how to tackle them. I'm also trying to gobble up as much prestige as possible because I need to buy units and then I need to upgrade units. And eventually, I need to elite replace units. So, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. But I think at a certain point, maybe near the end of 41, I don't think my core is going to be radically different from Picata's. I suspect. And maybe by some point in mid-42, they're going to be very similar. And it's not necessarily on purpose. It's just changing circumstances are kind of forcing me to use different units. That is a brilliant part of the mod. It will definitely punish you if you overdo your core in some way. Within each unit class, each unit family should have strengths and weaknesses. For instance, neglected units such as the Panzer II and the BF should be more useful and deserving of a spot in the player's core. Okay, yeah. I haven't looked too deeply at the fighters, but I think I should be careful about fighter upgrades because I think a lot of players upgrade to the FW, and maybe if they can, they upgrade to the Me. But he actually changes stats around so that the BF, even in 45, is like a viable plane to have. And the reason I might consider keeping a few of my planes as BFs is it would lower the prestige soft cap. So one of the big issues with the soft cap is if you deploy a huge Air Force, airplanes are some of the most expensive units you can deploy. So if I maybe don't overdo that too much, it will help with the soft cap issue. And also, if he's going to change the stats to make these units more viable, maybe it's not such a bad thing to have a couple of fighters that are at a BF level. And I don't even think I can afford to upgrade to an ME. I'm going to have some FWs and BFs, some mix. I don't know what the mix is yet, but it'll be a mix. And it's insane how expensive the ME is, so I'm not buying one. Given the constraints of conditions 1 through 3, there should nevertheless be a number of viable core compositions. Point 4 is one of the most important elements of his mod. He has a definite idea of the core he wants. I have a definite idea of the core I want. They are not the absolute final assessment of what the optimal core is. I'm not convinced there is an optimal core. I think that there's a lot of ways of playing this game. And he has made so many useful changes to stats and how units work that I can imagine dozens and dozens of ways that you could build your core and still get decisive victories. It makes the game more fun. If you haven't downloaded this mod, you should download this mod and start experimenting. I think you would be very pleased with the results. Given the historical context, combat results and the player's core composition should be more realistic. It doesn't look like it in my playthrough right now. I've kind of got like a lot of distortion with my unit composition, but it will balance out, especially as I have the prestige to actually buy more different types of units. Later on, my core composition will look more realistic. Historically, formations were usually given new equipment after being pulled off the front line for extended rest and refit. Since there's no way for the game engine to model this process, upgrades both in and out of family are balanced primarily around gameplay reasons. This is very clever. He does some things here with point 6 that I approve of, and I'd be curious to see what Lieutenant Joker has to say. Some more notes on the historical context. The early war period. German armor is in general weaker than their best Allied and Soviet equivalents. In 1939, I only used the 38T and the Panzer ones in the first couple scenarios, and then I sell them because they're garbage. The 38T is actually very good at 39, and you saw the 38T shine in Spoils of War. That's just a true statement. German armor sucks. Even in 1940, I'm very careful with my German armor. If you look at the Hague playthrough, when I had an opportunity just for fun to attack infantry on an open hex, because the infantry wasn't suppressed, I wouldn't do it. Why wouldn't I do it? Because the defenses of the Panzer III and Panzer IV are not very good for tanks. And it would basically be a waste of prestige because I would probably attack the infantry and take a point of damage. And I don't really see much point in doing that. And I might do worse. I might take 2 or 3 points of damage because, like I said, Panzer III and Panzer IV have weak ground defense and weak close defense. German air superiority is assured. While German bombers are devastating, they should generally be used at the critical point. So I think so far I've shown conclusively my German fighters are dominating the air. There is the exception of when I fight Spitfires and Hurricanes. Those guys are, you got to be careful. I put my experienced fighters on them. I use mass attack. Or if I can hit them with an 88 gun first, I will, because those fighters are competitive with German fighters. And you'll also see that I try to use my bombers at critical points. I'm not always successful, but I try. I haven't really deployed my tactical bomber much because I need another slot for another unit. And it's interesting to me that I'm still getting decisive victories, barely deploying my tactical bomber. Just a fun fact. German infantry is better than their Soviet counterparts. I mean, I think it's better than the Polish counterparts and the Belgian and the Dutch and the British and the French. I mean, the stats of German infantry is just really good, and he's improved it and changed it around in ways that makes different infantry better. And the Soviets in the early war period, until you get to Stalingrad, the reality is, outside of maybe guards, their infantry is not very good. It's just a fact. Overall, the biggest edge for the Germans during this period is their high-level experience. The average German experience will be about 300 versus 0 to 100 for the Allied and Soviets. Correct. And as he noted earlier, experienced units have huge advantages over inexperienced units, and I actually exploit that sometimes when I go out and attack. Like if you look at my Hague playthrough, I've got paratroopers going kamikaze and going out and attacking units wherever the hell they want. And they're wrecking things, and many times not even taking damage for it. It's because, the paratroopers' ground defense is higher, and if they hit 1 star, some of my troops are over 1 star. That experience really matters. Late war, the Soviets have a strong armor force, which includes a large number of medium tanks supported by a smaller number of heavy tanks. Individually, German tanks are usually superior to their Soviet counterparts, especially in terms of initiative, but the Soviets have a significant advantage in numbers. Yep, so there's going to be a Soviet horde. Some of those tanks in that horde are very dangerous and competitive with Panthers and Tigers, and you're gonna have to find ways to deal with it. And the T-34 is not a joke. We'll see that later. The average Soviet infantry and air units are inferior to their German equivalents, although small numbers of elite infantry were advanced fighters, and advanced fighters are dangerous. Yeah, I think that the infantry gets better for the Soviets in 43. Guards, SMG infantry, mountain troops, they should be taken seriously. The only thing that's really helping me with the air war in 43 and on is that I'll have experienced fighters. But if I upgrade to the FW, that's less true. So I'm going to have to set fighter traps. I'm going to have to bring some anti-aircraft guns. I'll probably have like an 88. I might have to bring like 2 mobile anti-air guns. I might buy, like in the 1942, I might buy mobile anti-air just because I might need it. One of my 88 guns has a defense hero, so it's like a defense +1 hero. I might just upgrade that to a mobile anti-air gun just because it's more useful for mobile anti-air to have defense heroes than static. And and the defense +1 hero is like maybe the second most useless hero you could get on an 88. So I might upgrade him. Let's see. The Western Allies have a strong edge in the air, both fighters and bombers, compared to the Luftwaffe. That's historically accurate. Western Allies infantry train to approximately the same standard as German infantry, although German veterans will have an edge in experience. Western Allies armor are generally inferior to their German counterparts. Game rule changes. The effective experience on attack and defense. The exact change is attack experience bonus equals defense experience bonus equals 17. There's some things he does in here I don't quite understand. I don't really know what that is. This change gives a significant buff to the effects of experience on infantry and early war tanks. The critical threshold of the defense and attack values of a unit is now 6, for which each 100 experience grants a 1-point bonus. A unit with lower values will also benefit quicker. So what he's saying is as you get more experience, defense and attack values starting at 6 go up by 1 with each unit of every star of experience. The new experience rules in favor of the Germans during 1939 through 41 because there are few experienced Allied and Soviet units to fight during this time. However, from late 1942 on, the Allies and Soviets field increasingly experienced units, so at this point this change also benefits their units. Okay. He's doing something here. I think this makes sense to him, and I don't really know what this is. But what he's basically saying is you're going to see +1 to attack and defense values with each star. And I think that's a really big deal. I think what that means is if your infantry has like oh, so does it not kick in unless it's at 6 or lower? Oh, so if my infantry has defense of 8, it would take 3 stars before the ground defense would go up to 9. That might be what he's saying. And if you have something that's at 4, I think I have an infantry that's at 4. No, my lowest is 6. Okay, so like my cavalry that has ground defense of 6, when it goes up to 1 star, I think that means its ground defense is 7. And when it hits 2 stars, it's at 8. Oh, see, that's the thing. Experience is going to matter, and that's why. That's really cool. Okay, out of family upgrades. This is where his mod is going to make you want to bash your head against the wall. There's an experience penalty for upgrading a unit outside of its family. The exact change depends on the year. 139, 125 in 1940, 175, and then 242, 225, and he caps it at 250. So when I get into 1943 and I want to upgrade to Tigers and Panthers, even if I have them all maxed out at 425, they're going to go down to 2 stars after the upgrade. Now, the good thing about that is 2 stars is still pretty good. So you're going to probably still be able to use them. They're just going to be slightly less overpowered. And then if you in 1943, if you hit, what is it, 525, and you upgrade to 250, that would knock it to 275, right? So you would basically have to fight a little bit to get the 3 stars, and then you'd have a 3-star unit in 44. That's actually not too bad. 1943 is the big one, though. You're going to have 2-star units with your tanks, especially. The upgrade penalty parameter specifies how much absolute experience a unit loses if it is upgraded outside of family. So if you upgrade your Panzer 3L to a Tiger and it's at 400 XP, it will go to 175 in 1943. So it's below 2 stars. You upgrade the Panzer 3L to the Panzer 3M in 43, it will keep its experience because that's the same class, or same family. This change is implemented to prevent the player from immediately acquiring 4-star Tigers and Panthers in mid-1943, 5-star ME 262As in late 1944, or other highly experienced German late war weapons upon their debut. This change is also more realistic because it takes time for troops to obtain experience with new weapons, but some of their previous expertise is still helpful. It is very possible to acquire highly experienced late war units, but doing so requires additional combat experience and the expenditure of significant prestige for elite reinforcements. So one of the interesting issues I'm going to run into is, do I do elite replacements? I think on the Panthers for sure. I want really nice, experienced Panthers. On the Tiger, they're pretty good. They might hold their own reasonably well and be able to rapidly gain experience. The Panzer IV is hopefully, because it's getting cheaper, I can do elite replacements without breaking the bank. But we'll see. This is something I don't know. I don't really know what's going to happen when I get into this 1943 issue. Reinforcement model adjusted. Scene elite replacement cost equals 75. Scenario, and then campaign replacement cost is 50. I have to figure out what this is. These numbers specify the replacement cost as a percent of the base unit. Oh. So if I'm doing scenario, was that within scenario? So 75% of the base cost is how much it would cost to do elite replacements. Wow. And then in the deployment screen, it's 50%. In green replacements, you lose 30% of your experience. Interesting. Green reinforcements are always free during deployment and cost 25% of a unit's base price during battle for all years. Okay, so during battle for all years. So yeah, he didn't put that in here. Scenario green replacement. So let's see. The regular infantry has 107, right? If you don't have trucks. And that means each unit is 10.7. So if I were to be damaged by 1 and then use green replacements during battle, it would cost 3 prestige to do so. Now what's interesting about that is if you add a truck to that equation, it costs 6 prestige to replace 1 regular German infantry with a green replacement. And that's what's kind of scary for me. One of the issues I'm concerned about is when you start adding in the truck cost to the unit cost, and that does affect the cost on experience and prestige when you replace them. You've doubled the expense of doing a green replacement in battle, and you've probably more than doubled the expense if you're talking about elite replacements on the deployment screen. But I'm not sure about that. And it gets worse as you get into 42. It gets a lot worse. This component equalizes the difference between the deployment stage and scenario elite and normal reinforcement costs. Now, both normal and elite replacement costs are always higher by 25% of the unit's base cost in battle than during deployment. It should now be more viable to use elite reinforcements during a battle. No longer should the player feel compelled to never reinforce during battle and only use elite reinforcements during deployment. However, the player can still save prestige by reinforcing at the deployment stage. You know, he says this, but when I've played with what I've played, I find elite replacements during battle to be insanely expensive. Just my opinion. He thinks he's made it more viable, but that's probably for a higher prestige level. I don't think I can afford it during battle. Overstrength costs also increase due to this component, so the player should be unable to field a corps composed of all elite units with maximum overstrength during the late war period. This change is to prevent the player from easily obtaining a corps of all maximally experienced and overstrength units and maintain this corps during 1943 and 45. As the war progresses, the player should choose wisely which units to elite, reinforce, and overstrength. I like this change partly because I think people put too much focus on overstrengthening, and I think you should be much more careful about when you overstrengthen, and his mod makes that happen. To compensate in part for the higher cost of elite reinforcements starting in 1942, the rate of experience growth for units between 2 and 5 stars has been increased. Furthermore, during the late war, a unit using normal reinforcements loses less experience. Using normal reinforcements on a 3 or 4 star unit should be more attractive during the late war, although this change is unrealistic. The average quality of new German recruits dropped as the war progressed. It is necessary in terms of gameplay balance. So one of the things that could bail me out is that once you get into 42, growth for experienced unit is increased, and then in 43, regular replacements don't hurt your experience as much. That's a really good change. This component simulates the loss of experienced reservists that the player can call upon from high command as reinforcements as the war progressed. The quality of the average German Panzer division started to decline in 42 and continued to do so throughout the war. Yeah, there's lots of people who have talked about that, actually. Furthermore, many German divisions became under strength because there were simply not enough men and equipment to fill the rosters. Only a few special formations, such as the Raubdeutschland division, received the best equipment and had full troop strength throughout the course of the entire war. That totally makes sense. Yearly unit changes. Because there's a separate equipment file for each year, it is possible to give a unit different statistics for each year of the war. Some units are automatically upgraded. For example, the Ferdinand in 1943 becomes the Elephant in 1944. Some units are reduced in cost. For example, Panzer IVs are cheaper in 1943 and cheaper again in 1944. There are dozens of such automatic changes. Please refer to specific units for details. Softcore option. For those players who dislike rules 2 and 3, there's an alternative set of game rules files that do not include those components. To install this version, blah blah blah. Reform units option. It's recommended that the player use the reform units sheet at the start of every scenario to lessen the frustration of permanently losing a prize core unit. To do so, press Ctrl-Alt-Shift+C and enter reform units into the text box. I've been trying to do it without that. I like doing it hardcore. Rules 2 and 3 are related to out-of-family upgrade experience and reinforcement. The thing that makes the mod challenging, basically. If you don't like that, but you want the stats, there's the softcore option. I don't recommend it, though. I think you should get the full experience of suffering and pain. Chapter 2, Infantry, Global Changes. Mountaineers. All Mountaineers have improved close defense +1 compared to standard infantry. This simulates their improved training in close quarter combats. So, you want to know why my mountain troops have been causing chaos and mayhem, and why one of my mountain troops by the start of 1940 had over 300 kills? It's because he raised the close defense by 1. It is a big deal. Okay. Combat engineers. All combat engineers have significantly improved close defense compared to standard infantry. This simulates their expertise in close quarter combat. I believe that includes bridge engineers and pioneers. And I believe the pioneers have close defense of 4, which is insane. So these guys are definitely designed for rough terrain fights and city fights. Cavalry. Cavalry ground defense has been increased. Cavalry remains more vulnerable than most other infantry, especially against air attacks. This change is mostly relevant for the many Allied and Soviet cavalry present in the Grand Campaign, so they take a bit longer to defeat. During World War II, cavalrymen were mobile infantrymen who dismounted to fight. The myth of Polish cavalry charging German tanks was created by German propagandists. I can tell you for a fact that when I was in history class and we learned about the war in Poland, one of the things that they stated was that the German armor was destroying cavalry that was charging them on an open field. And I went to a public school, and they're teaching that stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff we need to redo about the history of World War II. Let's see. 1943 infantry upgrades. All infantry of the major powers have upgrades in 1943. Units that were previously impossible to upgrade, such as bridge engineers and crotchetson, are upgraded automatically. However, the Axis minor allies do not receive infantry upgrades. That doesn't affect us much, I don't think. Infantry defense values. The defense values of all 43 infantry are increased. In general, close defense and ground defense are both increased by 2 compared to 39 infantry. This makes late war infantry harder to suppress by artillery and less vulnerable to attacks by tanks. That's a good change for the German player because those tanks are nasty, and if you could just survive, being assaulted, that would be helpful. But it also means it's harder to kill the enemy's infantry. So, I mean, there's a couple of things that are interesting to me about this. Basically, the Soviet infantry will be harder to kill, but so will yours. So having a balanced core of anti-tank and anti-infantry equipment is a big deal, because the Soviet tanks are already really hard to kill, but now the Soviet infantry are really hard to kill, and you need to think about how you're going to deal with that. Infantry attack values. In general, the soft attack of 43 German infantry is increased by 1, and the hard attack by 3. Compared to 39 variants. In general, the soft attack of 43 Allied and Soviet infantry is increased by 1 and the hard attack by 2. In 1943 and thereafter, infantry versus infantry combat in close terrain is less lethal. And that's mostly because the infantry's got higher close defense and ground defense. But higher hard attack by 3 means there are medium tanks maybe your infantry can take on. It's just something to think about. That makes a lot of your infantry really good. I can use regular infantry to take on certain tanks, maybe. Effects of experience on infantry. Due to the rule changes, experience has a very significant effect on the combat prowess of infantry. Experienced infantry perform much better than green infantry. So part of the reason I'm doing a hard push to get a bunch of infantry in the early war experienced, and then I want to upgrade them to the exact right type, is because I don't want to really upgrade out of class in 1943. I want to keep my units experienced. If they're experienced, they're going to be able to tackle really challenging maps. And I will probably be using elite replacements on infantry all the time. And if I'm going to do that and I want to be able to afford it, I might have to do it without trucks. So it's just something to think about. If I do it, it's cheaper to do elite replacements if the truck cost isn't included. Okay, here's our first table of 39 through 42. So there's a total of 8 types of infantry. You can see the price, and you can see the stats. Let's see, hard attack. Yeah, pioneers have the highest hard attack. The highest soft attack is paratroopers. They are really, really good at fort killing and wiping out infantry. And if you watch my Hague playthrough, you will see that in spades. There was 8 paratroopers causing chaos on that map, mostly against infantry, which there was a lot of it. Initiative is highest with paratroopers as well. That complements the soft attack nicely. And then grenadiers and mountain units have nice initiative. And the soft attack, or no, the move, wait, what was that? Spotting. Yeah, and then these guys are spotting. That's great. Movement, 5A means all-terrain, so it's an all-terrain type thing, but they're really hampered by snow. We'll get into that. Ammo is different and often lower. Pioneers have 1 lower ammo, for instance. I think the ammo count is in general lower. Look at my crotchetson, 4 ammo. So I have to use them like a recon, basically. And what else? Anti-airs on grenadiers, pioneers, bridge engineers, and crotchetson. I didn't know that. I didn't know crotchetson had anti-air protection. That makes them more useful for going forward, and if they get spotted and a plane tries to attack them. Cavalry, I probably need to use them in the woods or something to protect against air attacks. Ground defense is interesting. They're all the same except for my spotting units and the paratroopers. But if I get my paratroopers to 2 stars, they have the same ground defense. And the same thing with cavalry. So that's crazy to me. And it only takes 1 star for the crotchetson to have the same ground defense. So my infantry at 2 stars will all have the same ground defense, and at 3 stars will rise together. That's crazy. Air defense is very similar but vulnerable. You can see the cavalry is vulnerable, and the Krachitsen actually, but they're very similar. Pretty tough against the air. I think you've seen many examples of air units attacking my infantry and not doing damage. Close defense is very similar, except for these two. Part of the reason my mountain units are going crazy is they're doing really well. They have a higher close defense, so they can take a beating and not take damage. And pioneers are nuts. 4 close defense is a lot, in my opinion. And see, recon move. Yep, that little change makes these 2 units viable to add to your core. I would get 1 of each, mostly because if there's snowy weather, you want cavalry and not Krachitsen. And there's enough scenarios with snowy weather that or rougher terrain where this guy is going to do well. Okay, elite German infantry are well trained and potent in combat, but command a much higher cost than standard Weimar infantry and grenadiers. Mobile infantry such as the cavalry and Krachitsen are also much more expensive due to their organic transports. That makes sense. I don't mind that these are expensive. I mean, it's basically a recon vehicle, but better. It has better stats, more ammo, that kind of thing. And I think that they have more movement than it appears. I don't think the cavalry loses a movement when it moves one. I don't know the rules of that. I have to experiment. The paratroopers are German. The Fallschirmjägers are German paratroopers. They're best trained of all German infantry. They are incredibly powerful when attacking soft targets. They can also paratroop behind enemy lines. However, they tend to suffer more casualties, especially when used in risky airborne operations. Historically, German paratroopers suffered heavy casualties when used in airborne operations, especially during Operation Mercury, the invasion of Crete. My plan: I do want 2 paratroopers. I have 1 regular Weimar infantry with a defense +2 hero. I plan on upgrading that to a paratrooper, and maybe I'll get lucky and get a defense +3 hero, and I'll upgrade that to a paratrooper. And if their defense is raised, like that defense +2 hero, he'll have 8 ground defense, 19 air defense, and 4 close defense. He's going to be really, really good because stats-wise, he dominates soft attack. He dominates initiative. And he just isn't really designed for tanks. Basically, don't use him against tanks, but everything else, they're better than pioneers because they can also attack forts. So it's just something to point out. Mountain units are mountain troops who can move quickly over hills and mountains. They are equipped similar to their here counterparts but better trained, giving them a bonus to initiative +1. And that's a big deal. Pioneer are combat engineers who specialize in close combat. Combat engineers excel at assaulting fortified positions. In the game, they ignore entrenchment and have an attack bonus against forts. They also carry a higher complement of satchel charges than normal infantry, making them particularly suited to attacking tanks and other hard targets in close terrain. Thus, they have the best heart attack of all types of infantry. In addition, they have a bonus to close defense of 2. These guys are... I'm going to try to get a couple of these. I probably will upgrade my 6 movement one to this, which will mellow them out some. But man, close defense +2 is a big deal. Cavalry, they are fast, have superior spotting, and require no fuel. They can move quickly through rough terrain and in the snow. They are equipped similarly to standard infantry but have lower defenses. They are also expensive. Historically, the Germans maintained a small number of cavalry formations in the beginning of the war. During the invasion of the Caucasus in 1942, they successfully recruited some Cossack cavalry to join their ranks. Due to the deteriorating state of the German mechanized forces as the war progressed, several divisions of SS cavalry, such as the Mary Teresa Division, were during the late war raised to serve as mobile infantry. So I actually will be able to use my cavalry the entire war. Krachitsen are German motorcycle troops who served as scouts and mobile infantry. They are armed with somewhat heavier weapons than standard infantry. Their combat performance is superior to cavalry, although they are more expensive and somewhat less mobile in rough terrain. Their mobility is seriously hampered by snow. That's useful to know. Then we get into Western Allied. I'll ignore that. There's a bonus to heart attack. That's part of the reason why they're harder to kill. French infantry have a bonus to soft attack. They're better equipped. The mountain troops have initiative penalty. Soviet guards have the same combat values as heavy weapons infantry, but with an additional movement point. They are extremely dangerous, so use caution when engaging them. These units do not show up until late 41. Soviet guards have superior stats in their historical performance, which suggests, for balance reasons, this is to ensure that the Soviets have some dangerous infantry units during the early war period. You can see like initiative is much lower for them. Ground defense can be often, look at that, 2 ground defense, and they're often lower ground defense. You know, close defense is comparable. SMG infantry spotting has been improved to be the same as standard infantry. Thus, these units are less likely to make suicidal attacks against German units backed up by artillery. Conscripts have spotting of 1, but apparently I didn't know this. The SMG had spotting of 1. That seems like a bad stat. German infantry, late war. Everybody's getting more expensive. Look at these paratroopers. So I want to have a couple paratroopers, and then they'll automatically get upgraded to this, so I don't have to spend 500 prestige. That should be easy to do before 43. And Volkssturm show up. I think that's late. They're very cheap, but looking at them stat-wise, very low initiative, can't move much, spotting of 1. Not very impressive. Look at the ground defense. It's way higher in 1943. And air defense is higher, and close defense is higher. I mean, it is crazy how high the close defense is. Even the Volkssturm have reasonably high close defense. Ammo is still potentially an issue. Yep. Grenadiers have better firepower and initiative than standard infantry. The drawback of Grenadiers is their lower movement, which is less of a problem during defensive battles. Yeah, I mean, I think I want a movement. I think later on I'll get movement heroes, and then I can upgrade them to Grenadiers. If I get a movement hero now, I upgrade them to Pioneers. Just because the heroes you get later have stats that are more complementary for Grenadiers. Just saying. Yeah, initiative is pretty high, but 5 for the paratroopers. And it's pretty cool. Pioneers are the toughest German infantry in close terrain. Close defense benefits fully from experience. So this unit is invaluable in urban warfare. It also has the best heart attack of any German infantry, making it invaluable for assaulting the heaviest Allied and Soviet tanks. Volkssturm are available starting in 1945. It is a cheap, disposable unit not meant to survive a battle. It is the German equivalent of conscript. It is moderately useful against tanks in close terrain. When supported by artillery, it can hold off Soviet infantry for some time. This unit is best used defensively and does not perform very well when attacking. In 1945, where reserve units have been changed to Volkssturm with no replace and no upgrade flags added, it is assumed that these pre-placed Volkssturm are among the last of the men of military age in Germany has left. Even if strength points are lost, there simply are no reinforcements available. This rule does not apply the Volkssturm that the player can purchase. Okay. Western Allies. In general, Western Allies infantry have the equivalent in training compared with German counterparts. However, some Allied infantry, especially the Americans, did not perform well until they gained combat experience. The heart attack of British light infantry is lower than their German and Americans, since their PIAT is less effective than similar weapons such as the bazooka, the Panzerfaust, and the Panzerschreck. U.S. Army Rangers. U.S. Army Rangers are elite American troops. They are better trained and better equipped than standard U.S. infantry. They are also superior at assaulting hard targets in close terrain. Soviet infantry. In general, Soviet infantry in 1943 have less attack and defense than their German equivalents. Conscripts are slightly improved, but are still not a major threat. Specialized units such as SMG infantry, paratroopers, and especially guards can be very dangerous. Yep. Motorization. This is fun. Transport costs are way higher. All transports are now soft targets. This makes late war tanks less lethal against units caught in half tracks. This does not mean it is a good idea to move half tracks ahead of tanks. When attacked by enemy infantry or tanks, half tracks may still take significant casualties. Half tracks are also vulnerable to attacks by most bombers. Historically, tactical bombers were very effective at devastating motorized columns. It may be a good idea to protect half tracks with fighters or SP anti-aircraft gun. I don't know what that is. German transport costs. The cost for all German transports have been significantly increased. SE transports are half price because it is assumed that SE infantry have priority on motorization. See Chapter 5 for more details for SE units. German transport unit family. All German transports now share a unit family so they can be upgraded in sequence without paying the full upgrade cost. However, keep in mind that since their base price is now higher, the reinforcement costs for damaged units equipped with better transports are significantly higher. This point is really, really important, and I'm going to try to play with very few transports because I don't have a lot of prestige, and I will have to do elite replacements at some point on my infantry, and I will have to pay less if I don't sometimes double the cost by including these transports. Something to think about. German half-tracks. The SDKFZ 250/1 has a slightly better defense than the other one, for balance reasons. In actuality, both transports had similar armor. These are half-tracks, apparently. Why is this one so expensive? It has more movement. And higher defense. Interesting. Close defense. Interesting. Transport for a towed unit. The Opel Blitz is used to transport smaller caliber artillery, anti-aircraft guns, and anti-tank guns, while the SDKFZ-7 is used to transport heavier caliber weapons. Note that when upgrading a unit towed by the Opel Blitz to a more advanced model, towed by the SDKF-7, select both the unit and the transport in the upgrade screen to avoid having to pay additional prestige. Yep. Okay. Chapter 4, Tanks and Tank Destroyers. Global changes. Mechanical reliability. The mechanical reliability of many, I forget what AFV stands for, something vehicle, of AFVs is modeled via their fuel and ammo values. In general, unreliable units are given low fuel and ammo. Thus, those units will need to frequently resupply, especially when on the offensive. This stimulates the extra time needed to perform maintenance. The Schürzen, starting in late 1942, many German tanks were equipped with armored skirts known as Schürzen to protect their side armor against anti-tank weapons of Soviet infantry and Allied infantry. All German AFVs with Schürzen have a bonus to close defensive +1. Schürzen can usually be distinguished visually. The sole exception is the Panzer 3M, which is modeled with the Schürzen in spite of its graphics. Okay. I didn't know about this. That's cool. Heavy tank defense reduction. In general, heavy tanks for all factions have their ground defense and air defense reduced. That's good for us because that means our bombers are more powerful, and it also means our infantry have a chance of actually taking them out. Tank gun standardization. The heart attack and initiative of tank guns have been standardized. In general, the initiative of tank destroyers equipped with the same gun as their turreted counterparts is 3 lower. There are few exceptions noted for each unit. For instance, American tank destroyers have fully rotating turrets and thus have no initiative penalty. Okay. German tank and tank destroyers, early war, Panzer I. So if you start looking at these stats, look at the defense stats on these Panzer I and II. They're really bad. The 38T, I'm rather surprised. It's got the same defense of stats as the Panzer IIc, but 1 higher close defense. But much higher hard attack. Yeah. And soft attack is pretty good except for the flam, but that's later in the war. Initiative is higher, and he can move 1 more. And it has a lot of fuel, and it has more ammo than anybody else. That's interesting. And if you get into the Panzer III, more ammo than anybody else, more fuel most of the time, movement of 5. Initiative is the same as the 38T, higher soft attack, higher hard attack, higher ground defense, air defense, and the same close defense. It's only really slightly better than the 38T, but slightly better is still slightly better. And then the Panzer IV has less ammo, less fuel. Its initiative is the same. Its soft attack is higher, so use the Panzer IV for infantry. Its hard attack is the same, but higher than the 38T. Ground defense is higher than the 38T, but lower than the 3F. Its air defense is lower than the 3F, and the same as the 38T. So the Panzer IV is much more expensive, and it really only has like higher soft attack compared to the Panzer III, but that's okay because the Panzer IV is supposed to take out infantry. Then there's a Panzerjäger. This can be upgraded to a Marder II. And that's the reason I'm going to buy one of these. It automatically upgrades to this. So if I have a 2-star Marder II, that would be great. The Panzer IIc is a cheap light tank. It is equipped with a machine gun and a 20mm gun, similar to a 20mm flak. The high rate of fire that the 20mm autocannon compensated somewhat for the weakness of each individual shot, although this resulted in a quick drain of ammunition. This tank is moderately effective against soft targets, but not very useful against hard targets. Yep, it sucks. These same weapons are also equipped to many early war German armored cars, but the Panzer IIc is cheaper and better for sustained combat. The Panzer IIF is an upgrade with superior armor. The Panzer IIc cannot be upgraded to the Panzer II Flam in family. Both the Panzer IIc and the Panzer IIF are automatically changed to the Recon class in 42. So if you do buy one and then you get disappointed by them, they will become a recon vehicle. I don't think it's worth it, but that's up to you. The 38T is a good early war light tank with excellent mechanical reliability. This tank has a bonus to movement to represent its ability to sustain prolonged movement without having to pause for maintenance. This tank is of Czech design and well armed and well armored for 1938 to 39. It entered German service because it is significantly superior to the Panzer I and Panzer II. While Panzer III and Panzer IV production was still limited, the tank was used effectively in Poland, France, and the early war period of the war in Russia. However, as it was phased out because it was significantly outclassed by the T-34. Its chassis was used for a number of other German AFVs, including the Marder III, Grell H, and the Herzer. The Panzer 38T can be upgraded to a Marder III in family in 1942. Panzer IIIF. The availability date of the Panzer IIIF has been moved to the start of Grand Campaign 40. This tank is not available for operations in Norway. That's not a big deal. Tanks aren't useful in Norway anyway. The Panzer IV-D is equipped with a short-barreled 75mm gun and had slightly less armor than the Panzer IIIF. However, the Panzer III was more numerous and considered the main battle tank, while the Panzer IV was relegated to a support role in 1940 and 41. However, the Panzer IV-D is more expensive. So you'll see in this playthrough that I want my Panzer IIIs to do the heavy lifting, and my Panzer IV takes out infantry and provides support. It covers the flanks, basically. Panzer I-B has the highest heart attack of any German AFV until 1942. This unit is very useful for attacking suppressed, weakened Allied tanks. However, its defenses and soft attack are very low. This unit can be upgraded in family to the Marder II in 1942. I wouldn't have bought one, but Deducter knows that and said, well, if you do buy one, you get a Marder II. And the reason I didn't want to buy one is look at the ground defense. Close defense of 0 is highly problematic. Ground defense and air defense is lower. It's too low in my opinion. And it does have a nice heart attack. In fact, it has a better heart attack through 1941 than any tank you can buy. Its initiative is unimpressive. It has spotting of 1. Its heart attack, its soft attack is terrible. So this thing is worse than a Panzer I. So you're only using it to take out tanks. But close defense is 0. So I have to use him very carefully. The Panzer II Flam ignores entrenchment and has an extremely high rate of fire. It is deadly when attacking soft targets with low defenses, such as conscripts and artillery. However, it is very vulnerable to enemy tanks. The summary. Early German war tanks such as Panzer I and Panzer II are cheap and moderately effective against light targets, but are ineffective against all but the most lightly armored AFVs. The 38T is cheap and fast light tank with excellent mechanical reliability. It can engage Soviet high tanks with good success, but is ineffective against heavier tanks such as the Char B1, BIS, T-34, and KV-1. The Panzer II Flam is a specialized tank useful for taking out entrenched soft targets quickly. The Panzer IV is the best choice to attack soft targets, while the Panzer III is the best choice to attack hard targets, such as Soviet light tanks and weakened suppressed T-34 tanks. It is recommended that the player fields both variants instead of defaulting to the Panzer IV. The Panzer Jaeger 1B is decent against hard targets, but is limited by its poor initiative, soft attack, and defenses. So if you're going to buy one, use it carefully. Western tanks. Matilda II, Cruiser 1, Cruiser Mk4, and Valentine II are all armored with the QF 2-pounder, which is an excellent anti-tank weapon during the early war. The British tanks have the best heart attack in 1940, which makes the British path in Grand Campaign 40 more comparable with the French path. In particular, the Cruiser Mk4 is dangerous due to its combination of high speed, firepower, and armor. The Matilda II has an incredible armor for 1940, but its slow speed hampers its effectiveness. Look at the heart attack. 8, right? And mine was... I only have the Panzer 3F and Panzer 4D. It's 7. So the Matilda 2 has higher heart attack. All of these guys have higher heart attack. RB1 has 7. Where it gets interesting is ground defense. You see 15, 11, and 14. Let's take a look at our tanks. The highest we have isn't even available in 1940. It's 8. It's 8. So our tanks take a lot more damage than their tanks. Air defense, like 7 to 10, and our air defense is like 7 to 10, or 8. It's basically 7 or 8. Okay. Our air defense is slightly worse. Close defense is 1 and 2, and our close defense is 2. We can use that sometimes. But you can see fuel on the Char B1 is 12, which is hilarious. That reflects mechanical unreliability and ammo of 4. British medium tanks. The Matilda 2 cruiser, and I already did that one. French light tanks. The Renault and Hotchkiss tanks are slightly improved and outclass the Panzer 1 and Panzer 2. However, they are not a serious threat to the Panzer 3 and Panzer 4. The Samoa is a French cavalry tank with 47mm of frontal armor and armored with a 47mm main gun. It is designed to exploit a breakthrough and to evade any strategic tank reserves. It had better armor and firepower than its opponents, the Panzer III and Panzer IV. However, the Samoa S-35 has serious drawbacks, which includes poor reliability and a one-man turret. This is reflected by an initiative penalty of -1. Yeah, it's 3, and our initiative is 5 and 5, so that's going to hurt them in combat. The Char B1 BIS is the most common variant of the Char B1 heavy tanks. This series of weapons were designed as well-armored assault tanks, designed to force a breakthrough at a heavily defended position. The variant had a 47mm and a 75mm gun and 60mm thick frontal armor, making it a very formidable vehicle in combat. However, the Char B1 BIS, like the Samoa, suffers from serious mechanical troubles and a poorly designed one-man turret. The Char B1 tends to stall out during counterattacks even more so than the Samoa. These factors hamper its effective employment. Although nearly invincible in direct tank battles, the Char B1 BIS is vulnerable to the the Junker 87 dive bomber, the 88 gun, and infantry assaults in close terrain. Historically, German tanks struggled to defeat these heavy tanks in direct combat. There is a famous story of a Char B1 ambushed by 13 Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs at Stone. This French heavy tank took over 100 hits during the battle, but still destroyed all of its attackers before retreating. Soviet tanks. Oh boy. The T-26S, BT-5, and BT-7 tanks presented a reasonable tough challenge in the 1939 bonus scenario Spoils of War, but are not a serious threat in Grand Campaign 41 and beyond. Even the 3.7cm Pak 36 can defeat these tanks without trouble. The BT series can be dangerous because they move fast enough to be able to strike into the rear of advancing German column. The T-34 is one of the most famous tanks of all times. Counting all of its variants, it is the most produced tank of Second World War. At the start of Barbarossa, this tank has much better armor and firepower than anything the Germans fielded. In 1941, they are very resistant to attacks by most German tank and anti-tank guns. While their 76.2mm gun is sufficient to penetrate the armor of all German AFVs, it outclasses all German tanks until Panzer IVs with long-barreled 7.5cm guns are introduced in 42. Furthermore, the Soviets field this tank in ever-increasing quantities. The T-34-40 has serious mechanical troubles, which is represented by its low fuel and ammo. Historically, many of the early model T-34s broke down while being driven to the battlefield. On the other hand, the T-34-41 has superior fuel ammo compared with most German tanks. It also has a more powerful 76mm gun than the earlier model. In 1941, the T-34 has an initial penalty of -2. This represents deficiencies such as lack of radios, poor turret layout, and the horrendous tactical doctrine of the Red Army's tanks in this year. So you can see its initiative is 4 instead of 6. That's a good thing, because our initiative is 5, and if I go all the way up, it does go up to 6, and it stays 5 for the Panzer IV. So we have a chance to shoot first, basically. KV-1. The KV-1 heavy tanks boast even more armor than the French KV-1 and the British Matilda II. They are equipped with the same 76.2mm gun as the T-34 and can devastate any German tank. In 1941, these tanks are nearly invulnerable to direct attacks except by the 88 gun. So I have two 88 guns. And part of the reason for that is I'm anticipating KV tanks, and I need 88 guns or my tactical bomber to take them out. The KV-1A is equipped with the same gun as the T-34, and the KV-1B is equipped with the same gun as the T-34-41, but these tanks were never produced in mass quantities, at least by Soviet standards, hence they cannot be purchased. In 1941, the KV-1 has a very significant initiative penalty. So, it's 3. So I definitely have a chance to shoot first against these guys. KV-2, this Soviet behemoth is armed with a 152mm howitzer, which is devastating to soft targets, although it is not particularly effective against armor. The heavy gun makes the vehicle less mobile. This vehicle also has very limited ammo. In 1941, the KV-2 has an initiative penalty of -2. Yeah, he's down to 3. That's really bad. That's a terrible initiative. Su-100Y. The KV-5 has been renamed to the Su-100Y and is changed to the tank destroyer class. This boss unit is almost impossible to destroy by direct attack, even with an 88 gun. It is most vulnerable to infantry attacks in close terrains. Its other weakness is very limited ammo. I don't remember this unit, so I'm a little concerned what's going to happen to me when it shows up. I mean, basically, you either kill it in close terrain or you tactical bomb it to death. In 1941, Soviet tank armor. The Soviet light tanks are badly obsolete in 1941, although the BT tanks can move fast enough to strike against an unprotected flank of a German advance. The T-34 and KV tanks completely outclass German light tanks and are more than a match against even experienced German medium tanks. It is advised that the German player avoid direct tank battles with these units in 1941. These advanced Soviet tanks are vulnerable to bombers, the 88 gun, and infantry in close terrain. Captured equipment. What's nice about this is I sell all my captured equipment, and when I get a T-34, I can get 700 prestige for selling it. If I capture a KV, look at that, 800 prestige. There's no way I'm not selling these. Captured Soviet tanks. In 1941, giving captured Soviet equipment to high command yields significant amounts of prestige. These units can also be put to immediate use with good results, although elite reinforcements are very expensive. The cost of many captured Soviet units decrease as the war progresses. From a gameplay perspective, since captured Soviet equipment is so much better than anything else the Germans have in 1941, they need to cost more to compensate. From an historical perspective, High Command was very eager to study the T-34 and the KV-1 in 1941. German commanders like Guderian inspected captured T-34 tanks and recommended some of its features to be incorporated into future tank designs. The sloped frontal armor of the Panzer tank is directly inspired by the T-34. Because the quantity of captured equipment increases as the war progresses, they command less and less of a prestige premium in later years. Captured Soviet tank initiative. Captured Soviet tanks do not suffer any initiative penalty. That's interesting. They have reduced stats, automatically upgraded. Great. German tank destroyers in 42. Panzer III is getting better, Panzer IV is getting better, and now we get the tank destroyers, right? And I will automatically get a Martyr 2A with my Panzerjäger. And then you see Martyr 3 is available, and then at some point the Stug gets available. The availability dates of many German AFVs in 1942 has been moved to later dates for balanced reasons. For example, the Stug 3F is available at the start of Razna, while the Panzer IV-G is available at the start of storming Stalingrad. Panzer IIIM. The Panzer IIIM is modeled with Schutzen, but otherwise it has the same armor as the Panzer IIIL. The Panzer IIIN is a dedicated urban warfare tank with very good soft attack and the highest close defense of any German tank. It can also engage light tanks with good success, but is not very effective against most medium tanks. So if I go look at the stats, the Panzer IIIM, nice close defense, even has anti-air. Hard attack is lower, but soft attack is nice. It's basically like the Panzer IV. And what else is good about this guy? It has low initiative compared to tanks, and less fuel, and less ammo. So the only reason you would use this is for the soft attack and the close defense feature, I think. I can't imagine why else I would use a Panzer IIIM. Martyr 2 series can be upgraded from the Panzerjäger 1B and family. It has higher initiative than standard tank destroyers. Although it is very fragile, it is faster than its historical data would suggest for balance reasons, which is represented by a bonus to movement, +1. So he has 6 movement. Can I look up the Panzerjäger? 5. Nice. So 5 movement. Compared to 6. So your Panzerjäger is going to evolve up to something with higher defenses and more movement. I like it. Initiative is decent, and compared to the Panzerjäger, a close defense of 1 is a big deal. That's more than anything, and its heart attack is 3 higher. So it's still got to be used carefully, but it's going to be more effective than the Panzerjäger. The Martyr 3 can be upgraded in a family from a P-38T. It has a higher initiative than standard tank destroyers, although it is very fragile. I will probably just buy a green one at one point, just to have it. It can kind of complement my core. That'll be my third anti-tank, essentially, and I will carefully level it up. It does have, it'll be easier. It's got higher defenses. And what else is good about this? Initiative is good. It will upgrade to the the Martyr 3H, I should say, and it's going to be pretty comparable to the Martyr, just higher defenses, basically, and 1 less movement. Slightly more fuel. Interesting. The Stug 3F and Stug 3FS are well-armored assault guns equipped with a powerful, long-barreled 75mm gun. In addition, they have a low profile, which gives them a bonus to ground defense +1, compared to similarly armored vehicles. Their combination of excellent armor and firepower makes them a good choice to engage Soviet armor. They also have good soft attack for a tank destroyer. They are relatively expensive in 1942, since production of the Stug 3 did not significantly increase until 43. 1 second, I gotta turn on some lights. Okay, so the Stug, I will buy. I think I will buy them, right? I think the Stugs are really good. I should probably buy a couple of these. I think, or maybe it's the Stug 4 that's really good. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll buy 1, so that'll be my 4th anti-tank. The Stu H-42 is a close fire support vehicle designed for urban warfare. In direct fire mode, it has the highest soft attack of any German AFV. See the artillery chapter for information on this unit in artillery mode. Oh yeah, I might buy 1 of these, and then I'll buy like 2 of these, because it does anti-tank and it does artillery. So anti-tank wise, I'd have 1 of these, 1 of these, 1 of these, and 2 of these. So at this point, I've got 6 anti-tank equipment. I think that's pretty good, and I'll see if I'm trying to build the core in my mind. We'll see what happens in 1943. In 1942, Panzer IIIs are still the most common medium German tanks. They're relatively inexpensive and effective in the hands of skilled crews, but they are nearing the limit of their upgrade potential. Panzer IVs equipped with a long-barreled 75mm gun are expensive, but highly effective against most Soviet tanks. The Martyr II is very fast, cheap, and effective against hard targets, but has low defenses. The Martyr III is slower than the Martyr II, but has more defenses. The Stug 3F has excellent defense and hard attack, but relatively low initiative. So I probably use the Stug 3F defensively. Soviet tanks. The T-34 is given higher attack and initiative than the T-34-41, although historically both variants use the same 76.2mm F-34 tank gun. Apparently these can't be purchased. So these are the tanks. KV and T-34s. Valentine's a British import probably, and these are probably British as well. KV-1C is equipped with the same 76.2mm gun as the KV-1B. T-34 cost. The cost of T-34 tanks are reduced and will be continued in subsequent years. This does not have an impact on pre-placed units, but at the end of certain scenarios, the player may notice the AI purchase numerous T-34s with which to launch a last-ditch attack. So what's good about his mod compared to the base game? In the base game, on those last victory hexes you don't capture, a bunch of KV-1Bs and KV-1Cs will get purchased, and those are way more annoying to deal with. In Deductor's mod, it's going to be T-34s because they're cheaper. T-34s are annoying to deal with, but you're going to have a plan in place for how to deal with them. Lend-Lease tanks. Lend-Lease tanks have been improved and made consistent with the British and American versions where possible. Generally, Lend-Lease tanks have better initiative but less attack and defense than the T-34. Of particular note is the Lend-Lease M4 variant, the M4A2. This is the version of the M4 supplied to the Soviet. It has diesel engine and superior speed and range compared with the M4 and M4A1. In summary, T-34 and KV-1 tanks are even more formidable in 1942 and 1941. Lend-Lease tanks can also be very dangerous, especially towards German infantry and other soft targets. Captured equipment. You can see the price for the captured equipment is going down, but still, you can get $756 for this stuff. Even a T-34 is over $500. That's prestige that you need. Captured T-34 KV-1 cost. The cost of the captured tanks have been reduced very significantly in some cases. The M428 is a cheap, reliable tank with decent armor and excellent soft attack. In 1944, this unit receives a significant upgrade to hard attack for balance reasons. So the player has a reason to use this unit in his core. I'm not going to use any captured equipment. Captured French equipment, they're available for French missions. I don't care too much about that. 1943, this is where things get exciting. We see Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs and then Panthers and Tigers. And the Panzer II Flam gets an upgrade, it looks like. I don't even know if I'm going to buy one of these. We'll see. And then Tank Destroyers. So the Martyr II is still here. The Martyr III gets an upgrade. And the Stug 3F has a path. And then you've got these bad boys. The cost of many German AFVs such as the Panzer III and Panzer IV and Stug 3 have been reduced. This represents the increase to German armament production starting in this year. Panzer III. All Panzer III models except the Panzer IIIN receives an automatic attack upgrade to help keep it competitive in 1943. The Panzer IIIN receives a soft attack upgrade to compensate for the increase to ground defense of most infantry in this year, and a close defense upgrade to help it resist infantry attacks in close terrain. The Panzer IIIN, it's interesting. Movement, soft attack is higher, and its close defense is crazy. See, here's the thing. You might want to upgrade in 1943. I don't know about in 42, but in 43, you might want to upgrade up one Panzer III to this. And use it very selectively. Its defense isn't bad, and its close defense is amazing. And its soft attack is better than any other tank that you have. So it's something to think about. That could save some prestige, actually, to have one of these. I don't know what that looks like in the base game, but I'll find out when Perkata gets there. The Panzer 4G has been upgunned to the 7.5 centimeter KWK-40L48. Automatic. The Stug 3G has a bonus to initiative to ensure its success as a tank. This vehicle is cheap, tough, and packs good firepower. Historically, the Stug 3G is the most produced and most successful tank destroyer. It destroyed more Allied and Soviet armor than any other German vehicle. Okay, so I'll have one Martyr 2, one Martyr 3, and I'll have like maybe 3 of these, right? And then I'll have my pack. So I'll have one of these, and 3 of these, plus my pack gun. So I'm still at, I think I'm still at 6 anti-tank. That's reasonable, I think. Panther. The Panther has excellent armor and hard attack, although its soft attack is lower than the Panzer IV and the Tiger because its gun was designed to engage armored units. It also has weak top armor, represented by its low air defense. The costs of Panthers are extremely high in 1943, but come down significantly in 1944 due to a much improved production in that year. Historically, the Panther was rushed into service before it was ready. The Panther D has serious mechanical problems, and its reliability was very poor during Kursk. It also has an initiative penalty of its very slow turret traverse speed, only 1 revolution every minute compared with 1 revolution every 15 seconds of the M4 German. The Panther A corrected some of its early mechanical defects, hence its higher ammo fuel and its turret would traverse faster, depending on how fast its engine is running. Panthers are completely unavailable on the Western Front in 1943. Historically, Panthers were first sent to Italy in 44. So let's take a look at that. The Panther D is like, I'm going to upgrade. I will have, I think, 5 in 1942. I have 6 tanks right now, and I think I will have 9 tanks in 1942, and 4 of them will be Panzer IIIs. One of those will stay in the class and stay as a Panzer IIIN, and then the other 3 are going to immediately be upgraded to Panthers. And that's going to cost almost 3,000 prestige. Well, actually, wait a minute. No, they're going to be upgraded. Yeah, they'll be upgraded to Panthers. And my Panzer IVs are going to stay Panzer IVs, and then my SE units will all... I'll have, let's see, 6 SE units. 3 of them will be upgraded to Panthers, and then 3 will be upgraded to Tigers. And you'll see why I want to do it that way. So I'll have something like 5 Panzer IVs, 3 Tiger, and 6 Panthers. And that's going to cost, like, it's going to cost an insane amount of prestige. I may not be able to do it right away. But look at the stats on the Panther D. Its ammo is 4, which is terrible. Its fuel is 14, right? Soft attack isn't impressive, but its defense is pretty nice. Its close defense is nice. Its hard attack is great. If you look at the Panther A, which is, once you have the Panther D, it's less than 100 prestige, actually, to upgrade it to a Panther A. The ammo goes up, the fuel goes up a lot, initiative is higher, and it gets air defenses. So it's going to be a lot better on the fuel and ammo front. And the Tiger, if you look at the Tiger, it's insanely expensive. It has 4 ammo and 15 fuel. So the fuel ammo situation is so serious that I'm going to make my Tigers, my SE units, those are going to be Tigers, because they get a 10% bonus to all stats. So fuel will be 16 or 17 with an SE Tiger, and I think its heart attack will go up to 21, and these stats will get better too. So, like, SE Tigers will perform slightly better, and just getting a little bit more fuel will make a big difference. Tiger 1 is an extremely tough tank equipped with a powerful 88mm gun. It can engage any Soviet or Allied AFE with good results. However, it has serious mechanic troubles, especially in the snow or mud. A long drive often proves more fatal to a Tiger than combat. Mechanical reliability increases in 44. It is also extremely expensive to produce. The Tiger 1 is amazing on defense. It can reliably hold on to most positions and only has to worry about the most powerful Allied and Soviet AFEs such as the IS-2 and the Sherman Firefly. Ferdinand. In terms of armor and armament, the Ferdinand is nearly the ultimate tank destroyer, beaten out only by the Jag Tiger. No Soviet AFE in 43, with a possible exception of the Su-152 and ISU-152, is a match for this behemoth. However, it is useless against enemy infantry or any soft target, and it has almost no mobility. The Ferdinand, like the Tiger, is best used defensively. It is almost impossible to dislodge from its position by frontal assault. On the Eastern Front, the Ferdinand can only be purchased at the start of Kirk's on July 5th. It is unavailable on July 6th. Historically, only 2 battalions of these tank destroyers were ever built. In 1944, the Ferdinand is renamed the Elephant and automatically upgraded with better soft attack and ammo and fuel. I will not buy one, and the reason is it costs a lot. A lot of money. The Hornisse is an open-top tank destroyer built on the Panzer IIIN chassis and equipped with a powerful 8.8 centimeter blah blah blah. It has enough firepower to destroy any Allied AFE, although its armor is very weak. To compensate for its weak armor, it has a bonus to initiative. This vehicle is much more reliable compared with the Tiger and Panther tanks in 43. This unit is very effective against armor as long as it's employed correctly. It performs best in open terrain against Allied and Soviet AFEs. However, it is very vulnerable to infantry and bomber attacks. It is also very vulnerable in close terrain and during bad weather. I don't think I have the prestige for this, so I will skip it, but it's super cheap. Its heart attack is incredible. 24? Are you kidding me? But I don't think it's vulnerable, though. That's the thing. Summary. This is a huge increase in the number of AFEs a German player can field in 43. Every unit is designed to have a niche. The Panzer III is becoming increasingly obsolete, but a veteran crew can still take on many Soviet and Allied tanks with good success. The Panzer IV-G and Panzer IV-H have enough firepower to take on any Soviet and Allied medium tank, although they are outmatched by Soviet heavy tanks such as the KV and the IS. The Stug 3G is a cheap, tough, and powerful tank destroyer especially suited for defense. The Marder 2 and the Marder 3 are even cheaper and have good initiative, but they have lower attack and much lower defenses. The Hornist should now be more viable because it has amazing hard attack and initiative, allowing it to destroy most Allied tanks and clear terrain before they can return fire. The Panther is a tank best set by mechanical trouble in 43, ready in time for Curse. It combines good mobility and firepower as long as its engine doesn't break down. Despite its limitations, it is still a good idea to incorporate some Panthers into the player's core so their crews can gain some experience. The Tiger 1 is also a tank beset by mechanical problems. Its high defense and amazing attack makes it a good choice to spearhead assaults or to protect the flanks. The Ferdinand is the ultimate tank destroyer in terms of armor and firepower. No Soviet tank, or not even the KV-85 or the IS-1, stands a chance against it. However, it is vulnerable to infantry and very slow. It is difficult to use when attacking, but is amazing when defending. Do not expect that fielding a core exclusively of these advanced AFEs will save for siege or automatically bring victory. Key point is I want Tigers, but not too many, because I want them to defend my flanks. So I'm thinking about 1944, which in my opinion is a very challenging year. You're going to want your Tigers to be selectively placed to defend key spots. Let's see here. I don't care about the Western Allies so much. Soviet tanks. Oh boy, we see some T-34s and KVs, and then we see the IS and the SU. The initiative penalty for Soviet T-34 and KV tanks is removed. So these guys are nasty. Every tank you see listed here is nasty. So 1943 is a really bad year for the German player. The T-34, the cost of T-34s have been reduced further. The AI will buy T-34s to launch last-ditch attacks in many scenarios. The Su-76M is a Soviet assault gun built on the T-70 chassis and equipped with the same 76.2mm gun as the T-34. Historically, the Soviets sometimes use the Su-76M in direct fire mode, unless this unit can also switch to artillery mode. The Su-76M is a Soviet assault gun built on the T-70 chassis and equipped with the same 76.2mm gun as the T-34. Historically, the Soviets sometimes use the Su in direct fire mode, unless this unit can also switch to artillery mode. The Su-122 is a Soviet assault gun built on the T-34 chassis and equipped with a 122mm howitzer. While it is intended as a tank killer, it is not very successful in that role. It is fairly effective at destroying fortifications, and its main gun can deal significant damage to soft targets. Although historically the Su-122 was almost never used in an indirect fire mode for balance purposes. The Su-152 and the ISU-152 is a well-armored assault gun equipped with a 152mm howitzer that has devastating firepower to both hard and soft targets. The ISU is equipped with the same weapon, but even more heavily armored. Both have enough firepower to destroy any German AFE, although their poor initiative hinders their effective employment, especially when on the attack. They are much more dangerous when used defensively and in an ambush role, but these units also have good soft attack and close defense, so they can perform well against green infantry in close terrain. However, elite infantry have little trouble defeating these units in close terrain. So you're going to want to set traps and get them into close terrain. Summary. In 1943, the Soviets field a significant number of light tanks and Lend-Lease tanks. Unless those units are overstrength, they are not a serious threat, although they do be wary of a high soft attack of the Lend-Lease M4A2. The primary Soviet tank in 1943 is the T-34. It is outclassed by the upgunned Panzer IV, but it is still relatively well armored. What the Soviets lack in quality, they make up for in quantity. The Soviets also field large numbers of Su-76M and Su-122, both of which are only dangerous against lightly armored German AFEs. After Kirks, the Soviets will also employ a few Su-85s, which can be dangerous to most medium German AFEs. The KV-1s are less formidable because of the significant upgrade in firepower of the German AFEs. The heavy Soviet AFEs, KV-85, IS-1, and especially the Su-152 and the ISU-152, are very dangerous. These Soviet behemoths are best fought with Panthers and Tigers, where they can be destroyed with tactical bombers. Or they can be lured into close terrain and destroyed with experienced infantry. The best Soviet AFEs now have no purchase flags. This doesn't affect pre-placed units, but stops the AI from spamming them towards the end of scenarios. Another change that's really good, if you watch Idoclesis' playthrough and you see at the end all of these horrible tanks getting purchased, it's overwhelming. And it's not really fair to the player who just spent the entire scenario defeating the most dangerous weapons of war, and then have the AI spam them on the last victory hex, and then they attack you. It's really not fun, and he fixes that. The Deducter's like, realistically, that's not how that works. Captured allied equipment. The price is continuing to go down. Yep. 1944 to 45. We see some Panzer 3N and Panzer 4s, and the Panthers are much cheaper. Close defense. Yeah, it looks okay. More fuel and more ammo. And then the Tiger 2, which I will never be able to afford. And I will never be able to afford a mouse. But my god, 29 ground defense and 26 heart attack. Wow. That matches the Jag Tiger and the Jag Panther. Wow. This guy, like, look at how expensive those units are. Historically, German armament production peaked in 44. The cost for most German AFVs, except for heavy armor such as the Tiger 1, are reduced in this year. Historically, the last Panzer III was produced in 43, and all remaining chassis were converted for the production of the Stug 3. Thus, in this year, Panzer III costs are not reduced. The fact is that by 1944, this tank is now badly obsolete, although a veteran crew can still perform well against the early model T-34 and M4 tanks. It may be best to upgrade any surviving Panzer IIIs to an OSF-N or to newer tanks like the Panther or Tiger. What is that? I don't even know what that is. Panzer IV. All Panzer IV models receive a bonus to ammo. This is to encourage their extensive use in 44. The Panzer IV-J has significantly better operational range and is much cheaper than the Panzer IV-H, but it has less initiative due to the fact that the turret has to be manually rotated. It also has less close defense because many final models lack Schursling. Panther. The cost for all Panther variants have been significantly reduced, since historically Panthers were produced in large quantities in 44. The Panther D is no longer available for purchase. Since the original Panther had serious mechanical issues, it did not have a long production run. The Panther G is a streamlined, reliable version of this tank and the most produced variant. Historically, while the Panther G was often fitted with the Schurzin and an anti-aircraft machine gun like the Panther A, for gameplay purposes, these are omitted. In-game, the Panther A has better close defense and anti-air than the Panther G, while the Panther G is cheaper and has slightly better ground defense. I don't know if I'm even going to have any Panzer IVs by 44. Maybe one or two. I don't know. The fuel and ammo of the Tiger 1 have been improved in 44 to represent improvements to its mechanical reliability. It is still best used defensively. An experienced Tiger 1 is very difficult for even the best Soviet and Allied tank to dislodge. Yep. Ammo is up to 6. Fuel is up to 20. That will actually go up to 22 because they'll all be SE. So that'll be good. And initiative, I think, will be higher too. Yeah. Tiger 2 is an ultimate tank. It significantly outclasses any Soviet and Allied AFV, including the Su-100, ISU-152, blah, blah, blah. It also is surprisingly agile despite its massive weight. However, it has a dismal fuel economy and is extremely expensive to produce. Historically, little fewer than 500 of these tanks were ever built. If the player can afford a Tiger 2, it can be counted on to hold any position. It is not a good weapon for offense, but a nearly perfect one for defense. The main weaknesses of the Tiger 2 is its low fuel, which means that it often gets stuck, especially in the snow. Its strength points can also be whittled away by air attacks. The Stug 4 has similar combat power compared with the Stug 3, although it has less initiative and slightly less ground defense. Because this unit can switch to artillery mode, its cost is significantly higher than the Stug 3G. Interesting. Okay. Where was I? The Herzer is a very cheap, reliable, and fast tank destroyer. It is given an ahistorical bonus to movement to make it more useful. Like the Stug 3G, this unit has a bonus to ground defense due to its low profile, although it has a slightly weaker gun. It is equipped with an innovative, remote-controlled machine gun that thus its soft attack is higher than many other tank destroyers. This unit is best used as a disposable unit to plug gas, or to direct powerful Soviet and Allied tanks. However, without backup, the Herzer cannot survive for long against any tanks or even the more powerful medium tanks. Herzer can be upgraded from the Marder III in family. Well, this is ahistorical. Since no Marder III was converted to a Herzer, it is allowed for balance reasons so that a player who has a Marder III since 43, or even a 38T since 39, can upgrade it in 44. The tank destroyer was designed by Guderian to replace towed anti-tank guns from German infantry divisions. About 2,000 were produced, and they acquitted themselves well on the battlefield. Interesting. So the Marder III is garbage, apparently. Oh, and it's really cheap. I might want to have a couple of these, so I'll definitely get a couple of Marder IIIs, and then they'll upgrade automatically. And soft attack, initiative is decent. Defense is reasonable. I like that. You can use it to plug. You can use it defensively. The Jag Panzer is a cheap tank destroyer with stats slightly worse than the Stug 3G. However, it has superior fuel ammo and good upgrade potential. Like the Stug 3G, it gets a ground defense bonus to its low profile. The Jag Panzer IV has the same gun as the Panther and similar armor, however, is not nearly as mobile as the Panther. Because of the high weight of its gun and its heavy frontal armor, this tank destroyer is nose heavy, earning the nickname Guderian's Duck. Its excellent gun, good armor, and relatively cheap price make it perfect for defense. The Elephant is renamed from the Ferdinand in 44. It is mounted with a machine gun, giving it a much improved soft attack, and its mechanical reliability is improved. This is still a problematic tank destroyer with serious mobility problems and a weakness to infantry. However, no Soviet or Allied tank can withstand its firepower, and few guns can effectively penetrate its armor. On the Western Front, there is an opportunity to purchase elephants at the start of Casino on February 8th. The Nashorn is renamed from the Hornice in 44. This unit is given a bonus to ammo to encourage its use. I don't think I'm going to buy any of this, to be honest with you. At this prestige level, I can't afford it. Jag Panther was arguably the best tank destroyer of World War II. It has the perfect combination of firepower, mobility, and protection. Like the Panther, its thin top armor makes it vulnerable to air attack. Only about 400 or so were built. The Jag Tiger is now correctly given the 12.8 centimeter gun, the same gun as the Maus. It has the best defenses and hard attack of any German tank destroyer. Like all advanced German AFBs, it suffers from mechanical troubles. Fewer than 100 were ever produced. This unit is unavailable for purchase in 1944, although there is an opportunity in Grand Campaign 44 to obtain one. It is available for purchase at the very beginning of Gold Cap. German AFV summary. Despite the last years of the war, the German player can field a huge selection of tanks and tank destroyers. All units, with the exception of the Panzer III, have valuable roles on the battlefield. The Panzer III is badly obsolete and is recommended that the player upgrade any surviving veteran crews to the Panzer IIIN model for urban combat or to the new Panther or Tiger tanks. The Panzer IV series continues to perform well. The Panzer IV-H is a superior model in terms of raw combat power, but the Panzer IV-J is cheaper and has much better range. The Marder III series, because of its good initiative, can still perform well against Soviet medium tanks. It can also be upgraded to the Herzer, whose role is that of a fast, disposable tank destroyer. The Stug 3G continues to shine as a cheap, tough, and effective tank destroyer. It is the go-to unit if the German player needs the unit to deal with incoming tanks. The Stug 4 has the same firepower as the Stug 3G, but is much more expensive because it has an artillery mode. The Jag Panzer is slightly worse than the Stug 3G, but it can be upgraded in family to the Jag Panzer, which has a very powerful gun. Panther tanks are now cheaper and much more useful, and they can be deployed in decent numbers. Experienced Panther crews can take on any task, but they remain vulnerable to air attack. The Tiger I and Elephant have somewhat better fuel ammo, but the former remains expensive and the latter cannot be purchased. Nashorn is a cheap option for a powerful tank destroyer, but is very fragile. The Jag Panther is an amazing tank destroyer, but is relatively expensive. The Tiger II is the ultimate tank, nearly invincible in combat, but it can scarcely move before running out of fuel. The Jag Tiger has the best armor and firepower of any German tank destroyer, but has very serious mechanical troubles. What you're going to get from this is I can't afford most of these, and there's weaknesses and strengths to all of them. Let's ignore that. Soviet stuff. T-34 is the final evolution of this famous series of Soviet tanks. It is equipped with a powerful 85mm gun, converted from a Soviet anti-aircraft gun, which is much better than the previous 76.2mm gun. It also has the best armor of all T-34 variants. This tank is especially dangerous if manned by experienced crews. It can engage all medium German tanks with good results. While it is still inferior to the Panther and Tiger, most ominously by the Soviets, that fielded large quantities of this tank, so any qualitative weakness is remedied by quantitative superiority. The IS-243 is a heavy tank fielded by the Soviets in '44 in response to the German Panther and Tiger tanks. It is equipped with a powerful 819 122mm gun that is capable of effectively penetrating the armor of all but the heaviest German AFEs, and its armor can only be reliably defeated by the 8.8cm PaK-43. However, loading the gun on this tank was cumbersome, thus its initiative is lower than that of Tigers and Panthers. It also carried very little ammunition. The IS-244 is the automatic upgrade of the IS-2 in 1945. This tank is a faster loading D-25 1mm gun, represented by an increase to initiative. The ISU-122 is a heavy assault gun that served primarily as a tank killer. It is equipped with the same gun as the IS-2 and has excellent armor. It has a bonus to initiative since it was a dedicated tank destroyer. This unit is not as effective as the SU-152 and the ISU-152 against soft targets. The ISU-122 is an automatic upgrade of the ISU-122 in 1945. This assault gun had a faster loading 122mm gun, represented by an increase in initiative. The SU-100 is the Soviet counterpart to the Jag Panther. It is equipped with a powerful D-10S 100mm gun, the most powerful anti-tank gun fielded by the Soviets. This unit is an extremely dangerous tank destroyer, capable of defeating almost any German AFE. Its main weakness is a low ammo count and poor anti-infantry capabilities. The Soviet field increasingly large numbers of experienced overstrength T-34s against any individual German AFE. The T-34 is no longer a serious threat. However, the T-34-85 is a significant upgrade, is more than a match for any medium German AFE. If lucky, it can even inflict significant damage to Panthers and Tigers. The Soviets also field more assault guns and heavy tanks. The KP-85 and the IS-1 remain serious threats against most German units. The IS-2 is a tough Soviet AFE with excellent soft attack and hard attack, but has relatively low initiative and very low ammo. The ISU-122 is a tough, powerful tank destroyer, especially effective when defending. The SU-100 is the best Soviet tank destroyer and comparable to the Jag Panther. The various Soviet heavy tanks and heavy assault guns are very dangerous, and it's best to fight them with German heavy tanks or with experienced infantry in close terrain. For sure. Yep. You can see as the captured equipment, the price continues to go down. Alright, SE units. All SE infantry have a bonus to soft attack +1 and hard attack +1, and they are better supplied compared with their here counterparts. In addition, all SE infantry are 20% cheaper and their transports 50% cheaper. These changes are implemented because SE infantry formations are assumed to receive priority for equipment and supplies. SE infantry are elite infantry with a low cost, so they are an excellent choice to elite reinforce and overstrength. SE tanks. All SE tanks have a bonus to hard attack and 20% extra fuel and ammo compared with their here counterparts. SE tank formations are assumed to receive priority for equipment and supplies. They can travel further and fight longer without pausing. Most SE tanks are 10% cheaper than their standard counterparts. The exceptions are the Panther in '43, Tiger 1, and the Tiger 2. The slightly lower price means that they are a good first choice to elite reinforce and overstrength. So part of the reason why I want my SE Tigers, or why I want SE Tigers and not regular Tigers, is because of 20% extra fuel and ammo. It makes them much more usable. Recon. This is fun. So I have this one and I bought this one. And you see that they have a trait. They're soft dedicated or soft combat. And soft is what kind of target. He changed it from the original game. Recon was a hard target. Now only Panzer IIs are a hard target, whereas everybody else is soft. So a tank will definitely wreck them. And dedicated means it's dedicated to scouting, and combat means it can fight. And if you have this label next to you, like when we see all of the recon units available, if I see dedicated in combat, I can upgrade on that path. So if I go from this to this, or no, to this, I don't have to pay the full price. I don't know if I will, because if you look at spotting, well, actually, okay, the spotting's the same, but what about movement? 10 wheels. Yeah, that's the thing. I lose movement, so it's not worth it. And then this guy that I bought has 10 movement. I'm not going to buy him, I don't think. Even though its ground defense is not so great. But, yeah, I'm not going to buy him. Most German recon units change from hard to soft. The exception is the Panzer II family. Dedicated combat and Panzer II recon families are... Oh, pardon me. Okay, so yeah, recon families are added. This allows a German player to upgrade recon units in family as the war progresses without losing experience. However, the newest recon model may not necessarily be the best, because elite reinforcements for late war recon units are expensive. Dedicated recon units have higher ground defense and spotting, but they have very low close defense and ammo. They are meant to serve as scouts and can survive limited encounters with enemy forces, but should not be used for extensive combat. Combat recon units have more ammo and higher close defense, and some models have excellent firepower. They have lower ground defense and spotting. They are more useful for exploiting tactical opportunities or for mopping up weakened units. I don't think I'm ever going to upgrade my scouts, actually. Now that I realize, like, this combat is going to see, he's going to see a lot of fighting, and I may have to use elite replacements on him, and I'd rather do that at 244 than 349. And I would also lose 2 movement. That's interesting. What's better about this? Higher. Oh, I see. I see. But the defenses are exactly the same. But initiative, soft attack, and hard attack are higher. I don't know if that's worth it. A more expensive, especially if I want to use elite replacements. I don't want to lose the movement either. Panzer II. The Panzer II is automatically changed to the Recon class in 1942. They are relatively cheap recon units with track movement, making them ideal in the snow. German recon units defenses. Most older German recon units receive a bonus to ground defense and air defense in 1943 to help with survivability. Newer models already have this defense buff incorporated. See, that's another reason I don't want to. Ground defense and air defense. Look at that. Yeah, I mean, it makes it even less likely I would ever upgrade them. I don't care too much about Western. If you look at the Russians, the BA-10, the BA-64 have 4 spotting, so, and they have the same mobility. This guy's nasty. I think that's the one I saw in Spoils of War, and look at his defenses. Yikes. That's why he's having a hard time killing it. So yeah, the Soviets are going to have these, and they're going to see everything. Later on, they'll have these, and that will help. But I think they'll have a mix of them. All of the AI's recon units remain hard targets for balance reasons. So, okay. So what does Deducter do? He says, I'm going to make your recon units soft, so you can't exploit them to like take blows from tanks. But I'll make sure the enemy's recon units stay hard, because then you can't just easily kill them. That's very clever. The T-60 and T-70 tanks are moved to the Recon class with improved attack and defenses. They are the rough equivalents of the Panzer II. Okay. Artillery. All mobile artillery with a range greater than 1 have their initiative set to 1. Mobile artillery with a range of 1 generally have initiative set to 5. Artillery cost increase. The prices for all German artillery have been increased. In general, self-propelled artillery and higher caliber towed artillery are much more expensive. The higher cost for self-propelled artillery is because they can provide suppressive fire for moving armored columns. Towed artillery is cheaper and has more ammo than their self-propelled counterparts. These changes are implemented because artillery, especially when over strength, tends to be too cost-effective. I agree with all of that. One second. Okay, so that's practical. I like it. So here is all of the artillery. The 7.5, the only thing it has is it has more shots than any other ammo. Right now I have the 10.5. You can see the 15th centimeter is way better, except for rate of fire. I don't know what that is exactly, but I want to buy one of these. I think having a 4-range artillery, there are some scenarios I'm imagining where that could be useful, and I want one because of it, and it's actually got better stats. It's just low ammo is the thing, and the rate of fire is lower. I don't know if I'm going to buy one of these. I mean, I plan on having one of these and one of these, but this is getting really expensive, and losing ammo count I'm not sure is worth it, but we'll see. I will probably buy one of these, and I'll probably regret it, but I think I want to buy one of these, and you can see how expensive it is. I don't know, maybe one of these two, and then I want to buy like 3 Stugs because they or no, is it the Stug? It's a Stug H or whatever. Yeah, I might want to buy like. Okay, wait, okay. I might want to buy like 2 Stugs, one of these, and like a couple of these is what I'm thinking. And then I'm not going to buy a Storm Panzer. They're very expensive, and I think their use is more limited after 1941. I don't know if I'm going to buy a Brumbar. It looks really expensive, not a lot of ammo, and I don't know about these guys. What I'm imagining is I'll have like a couple of these, one of these, a couple of these, so that's 5. One of these, 6. One of these, that would be 7. One of these would be 8. One of these would be 9. And then I might have 6 of those. Yeah, 6 10.5. So I'm thinking about 15 artillery pieces over the war. So we'll see how that goes. Elite replacements on that would be very expensive, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll have to use elite replacements too often, because your artillery is not supposed to be damaged anyway. I mean, at some point, I might need to upgrade my 10.5 into some combination of these artillery pieces. I don't know if I want to, though. We'll see. Historically, the 7.5 centimeter has a slightly greater range than 10.5 centimeter, and thus its range has been increased. The artillery might now see greater use during the early war, although its firepower is lacking, especially by 43. If I look at the stats, look at this soft attack. It's crazy. I mean, why would I even buy one of these? Look at this. And then the hard attack is the best with the 21 centimeter and the Stug. Man, this artillery is insane. The Neverwaffe, literally fog thrower, are TOW German rocket artillery. They are extremely devastating against soft targets. The lower caliber models have higher rate of fire and are great against conscripts and mostly lightly entrenched infantry, while the higher caliber models wreck even the most heavily entrenched infantry and even many tanks in 43 and beyond. Their primary drawback is their poor range of 2 and relatively low ammo. Yeah, those guys. I'm gonna probably get one and maybe 2. We'll see. The Wolfram M40 is a half-track mounted with Nebelwerfer. It has great mobility and amazing firepower against all soft units. Its main drawbacks are its high cost, low ammo count, and vulnerability to air attacks. Yeah, that's the thing. Look at the ammo. Yeah, I don't know if I want one of those. The ammo count's really bad. The Panzer Warfare 42 has less raw attack but a higher rate of fire than the Wolfram 40. It is slower but is slightly cheaper and has better defenses. This guy. But ammo is really bad. Yikes. The Stug 3A is a well-armored assault gun equipped with the same short-barreled 75mm gun as the Panzer 4D. This unit excels at providing close-range fire support and its resistance to direct attack. It has a penalty for movement, fuel, and ammo for balance reasons. Historically, the Germans only fielded a few dozen of these assault guns in 1940. The Stug 3A and Stug 3B remains in the artillery class despite it being an assault gun historically. That is because the Germans lack an effective, reliable artillery unit before 43. This unit can only be purchased during Grand Campaign 1940. It can be upgraded for free to the Stug 3B in 41. The Stug 3B excels at suppressing both tanks and infantry in 41 and 42. It has better movement and ammo than its predecessor. Its effectiveness decreases in 43 against the increasingly experienced Allied and Soviet units. It's a fort killer too, interesting. The Stug 42 is an assault gun mounted with a 10.75 centimeter howitzer. It is an amazing weapon for suppressing soft targets. It also has the flexibility of an assault mode, useful for direct attacks against artillery or suppressed units. Its main weakness is its forward heart attack. Ah, okay. I think I want to get. Hang on. So I think I'm gonna have like 5 of these, then one of those at 6, one of those at 7, probably a couple of these, which would put me at 9. And then one of these would be 10, and like 3 of those, that would be 13, and maybe one of these for 14, and then maybe a Warforeman for 15. Kind of depends. That's what I'm envisioning the artillery distribution looking like. I might get 2 Stugs. I think that would be fine. The Storm Panzer is a very tough assault gun capable of wreaking incredible havoc on soft units. It has enough ground defense to be resistant to attack by medium tanks and superior close defense, since it's a dedicated urban combat vehicle. Its primary drawbacks are its high cost and short range. The fuel ammo of this unit is increased slightly in 44 to represent the mechanical improvements made in newer production series. The Stug 4 is an anti-tank assault gun with an anti-tank artillery mode. Historically, the Stug 4 was very similar to the Stug 3G, except that it was mounted on a Panzer IV chassis. For gameplay reasons, this unit retains its artillery mode, but costs significantly more than the Stug 3G, and is slightly inferior in direct combat. This unit is designed to be a Stug 3B equivalent in 44. This unit is in the artillery class, so it can be upgraded from the Stug 3B and Stug 42, although not in family. Oh, that's interesting. So I can use the Stug 3B in 42, and then in 43 I can upgrade it. So what if I just get like 3 of these, and then in 43 upgrade them to this? And it's artillery. It won't take it that long to get the experience back. Okay, so what I'm imagining is 5 of these, 1 of these, 1 of these, that's 7, 2 of these, that's 9, 1 of these, that's 10, 3 of these, that's 13, 1 of these, that's 14, and then 15 is, I don't know. Maybe I'll get another 4 range one. I'm not sure. Interesting. The Stug 4V is an anti-tank assault gun with an okay. Storm Panzer 1. The Storm Panzer 1 is the first German self-propelled artillery available for purchase. It mounts a 15-centimeter SIG 33 infantry gun on a Panzer 1 chassis. Historically, this weapon provided fire support in close-range encounters, although its limited armor limited its effectiveness. For gameplay purposes, this unit has greater range than historical performance would suggest. It is also only available for purchase during Grand Campaign 40. This unit can be upgraded in family to the Storm Panzer 2 in 1941 and to the Grill H in 1943 for balance reasons. The Storm Panzer 2 mounts the same gun as the Storm Panzer 1, but on a Panzer 2 chassis. It has improved movement, ammo, and defenses. It is only available for purchase for a limited time during late 41 and early 42. The Grill H is designed as fast, tough, self-propelled artillery that can be upgraded from the Storm Panzer 2 in 1943. This unit has better movement than its original performance would suggest for balance reasons. It is effective against soft targets and is difficult to suppress by Soviet artillery. Its drawbacks are its poor range and low heart attack. Wesp. The Wesp is a reasonably cheap, long-range self-propelled artillery that is most effective once its crew gains experience. It performs best against lightly entrenched soft targets. The Hummel is a more expensive but more powerful self-propelled artillery than the Wesp. It has sufficient firepower to suppress moderately entrenched soft targets. It can even suppress some medium tanks with decent results. German artillery summary. Most artillery, towed or self-propelled, should be used to some extent for the entire war, depending on the situation. Towed artillery pieces are cheaper and have more ammo, making them more useful for sieges. The 7.5 centimeter artillery is effective against soft targets during 39 through 42, but its firepower is severely lacking by 43. The 10.5 centimeter artillery is a good, cheap, standard artillery piece suitable for use during the entire war, while the higher caliber 15 centimeter and 21 centimeter artillery are better against entrenched infantry and against tanks. The 17 centimeter is unique because it has a range of 4, but is very expensive and has a low rate of fire. The Nebelwerfer have superior attack and or rate of fire, but less range and ammo. Stug artillery have good defenses and decent firepower, so they excel in the role of close support. The Stug 3B is very effective at providing defensive suppressive fire in 41 and 1942, but is much less effective in 43 and beyond. Stug 42 is an excellent close support assault gun, effective against soft targets, but much less so against hard targets. The Stug 4 is an excellent anti-tank assault gun with good suppressive power against most Soviet medium tanks and a powerful direct fire mode. The Brumbar has exceptional firepower and defenses, but is also expensive and has no switch mode. Long-range artillery, mobile artillery are more expensive and have less ammo, but can fire while moving a great distance. They are particularly valuable since they can provide defensive fire for mobile units. The Storm Panzer I is available only in 1940 and has limited range and ammo, but is the only Range 2 mobile artillery available to the Germans for some time. It can be upgraded to the Storm Panzer II and later the Grill H. The Warhammer 40 and the Panzer Warfare 42 remain the best choice for suppressing soft units, but they are very expensive and have low ammo. The Vespe is the cheapest of all self-propelled artillery and has decent firepower, making it a good default choice. The Hummel has superior firepower but costs the most. The Grill H is fast and resistant to suppressive fire but has poor range, a lower RF, and is ineffective against hard targets. I'm now thinking that I might want a Storm Panzer. Where is that at? But I don't want this one. I want this one. But its defenses are grotesque. But it's so much better when it goes up to a Grill H, though. Soft attack, hard attack. It's mobile. I'm just thinking, so how does that compare to this stuff? Movement of 6 is really good. Now that I think about it, I might want to get a Storm Panzer II. It's expensive. I can afford it later, though. I may want one of these, too. I don't know if I want one of these. I may want one of these. I think I might want, in the end, what I'm imagining in the end is I have a Grill H, a Vespa, a Stug, a Brumbar, I'm imagining 3 of these, one of these, that's 5. Maybe one of these, that's 6. One of these 2, that's 7. 2 of these, that's 8. One of these, that's 9. One of these, that's 10. And then 5 of these. Yeah. I'm going to have a very diverse... maybe I'll get a couple of these. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how much I can afford, too. That's the thing. But now you're getting a snapshot of what the artillery situation is. You have a lot of choices. There's pluses and minuses. I don't care about the Soviet artillery. Do they even have anything with range 4? That's hilarious. They don't have anything with range 4. And only this gun has range 4. Okay. Anti-aircraft. Things to know. This can go up to this. The reducing cost. This guy. In anti-aircraft mode, the 8.8 centimeter flak has a rate of fire penalty. An elite overstrength 88 gun is no longer especially potent at shooting down planes, especially fighters. Smaller caliber guns are as effective as this unit at anti-aircraft duty. In anti-tank mode, it has no penalty, so it remains devastating against armored ground attacks. At the beginning of 44, the 12.8 centimeter flak has amazing firepower and the best range of any AA gun. Its drawbacks are a low rate of fire, very high cost, and the lack of an anti-tank mode like the 88 gun. All German half-track AA guns use the attack values of their towed counterparts. There's movement stuff. Lots of stuff about that. Maybe I won't upgrade the... I don't know. Who has the most movement? So movement doesn't start until here. I might later... I don't know when these units are available, but I want to buy... I think I'm going to buy a fresh, in 42, I'll buy a fresh anti-air unit that moves a lot. Can I read about this guy? The movement and fuel of the SD blah blah are made consistent with that of the tractor. Their defenses are slightly higher since they are outfitted with a small amount of extra armor. The SDKFC is automatically upgraded with 3.7 flak and 44, resulting in an improvement in anti-air +2. These units serve as mobile anti-air protection for advancing armored columns. They become increasingly valuable from 43 on, when German air superiority is no longer a given. Each unit has its own niche. The SDKFC 10-4 is cheap and mobile, the SDKFC has higher rate of fire, and the SDKFC 7-2 is equipped with the most powerful gun. Interesting. I think what'll happen is I will buy this one fresh, and then I will upgrade one of my defense +1 hero 88 gun to maybe this. Let me look at the stats. What I'm looking for is air attack, right? Look at the 88 gun. It has insane air attack, but there's some sort of penalty to it. Why is it so high? That's crazy. Well, maybe I'll upgrade my defense +1 guy to this guy and just keep him for anti-air purposes. Interesting. 22 air attack, and then this guy will be at 17. I like it. So I'll probably buy the second this is available. This will be in class. I'll buy this. And it's really not expensive at all. And then my defense +1 hero 88 gun will upgrade to this. I like it. So I'll have 3 anti-air, and I'll keep my other 88 as an 88. He has a defense +3 hero, so even at 43, there's certain circumstances where I could use that. Soviet anti-aircraft. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to check the range. Oh my god, it has a range of 4? Yeah, I want one of those. Yep, I'm definitely envisioning how my anti-air is going to work. Range of 4 is insane. Towed anti-tank guns. Global changes. In 1943, all anti-tank guns receive a bonus to their close defense and ground defense. That's good. This is what we're starting with. It's very cheap. And then in 43, it goes up. But by 43, he's going to look like this. Or this. By 44, or late 43, it's one of these. The costs for all German towed anti-tank guns are reduced to compensate for the increased cost of motorization. You have to buy a truck for them, just like your artillery. The 3.7 centimeter pack is effective against most early war light tanks. Historically, it was nicknamed the door knocker by its crew, as it was woefully inadequate against well-armored early war tanks like the Matilda, Char B-1, T-34, and KV tanks. The 5 centimeter pack 38 can defeat most lightly armored AFVs handily, but still struggles against well-armored tanks. So I have to use them carefully. That upgrade comes in 41, I think. But still, the hard attack is upped, soft attack is upped, initiative is upped, but spotting is worse. But that's okay. It's a little bit less ammo, not a big deal. Ground defense is higher. It's fine. The 7.5 centimeter gun is an effective weapon capable of defeating most mid-war AFVs. Available in 1942, this weapon can penetrate the armor of T-34s, KV tanks, and most Western Allied tanks. Historically, this was the standard divisional anti-tank weapon for German infantry divisions from 1943 on. And if you look, higher initiative, higher soft attack, higher hard attack, higher ground defense. It's losing ammo, but that's still not a big deal. The 8.8 centimeter Pack 36 is the anti-tank mode of the... Oh, yeah, that's the 88 gun. I got it. It's one of the most famous German weapons of World War II. It's an amazing anti-tank weapon and the only weapon in the early war that can handily defeat units such as the Char B-1, Matilda, T-34, and KV tanks. This unit receives a ground defense bonus of +2 in 43, so it helps keep the 88 gun viable. The 8.8 centimeter Pack is the ultimate German towed anti-tank weapon and is capable of defeating any Allied AFV. The Tiger II, Ferdinand, Jagdpanther, and Hornets are armed with the same gun. So, I think it's available in late 43 or early 44. This guy, heart attack of 24. This guy is going to evolve to this guy. He's losing ammo, but 7 is still quite a bit. Initiative is huge. Soft attack is 5. Hard attack is 24. And ground defense is reasonable. Close defense is 2. Nice. Fighters. The ammo of all German fighters has been significantly reduced. Many Allied fighters have more ammo than their German equivalents for balance reasons. The ammo of all German fighters is increased +1 in 1943 for balance reasons. Yep. Generally, the ground defense of all fighters has been increased. This is to reduce losses taken from anti-aircraft gunfire. That's nice for us. You can see the upgrade path of the BF. Late 42, this is available. The BF-109E is an excellent fighter during 39 through 41, but its age begins to show when more advanced Allied and Soviet planes appear in 42 and beyond. In 1942, the AA of this unit is increased by 1. The BF-109F is a much more maneuverable version of the BF-109. It is much more useful for engaging Allied fighters that have good initiative, but it lacks firepower against the more heavily armored Allied planes. In 1942, the AA of this unit is increased by 1. You can see the initiative is not that high. Imagine going up against my BF with an initiative of +6. And even here, in this version, it's not huge. And the air attack is slightly worse, so why would I upgrade it? I'm trying to figure that out. Initiative, that's why, because initiative is important. The BF-109G is the most well-balanced version of the BF-109. It has the best balance of initiative and firepower until the BF-109K is introduced in late 44. So air attack is really high, yeah. Plus initiative is decent. The FW-190A is the most advanced and heavily armored German fighter in 1942, but it's also the most expensive. It has excellent firepower, is well suited to shoot down heavily armored bombers like the IL-2 Sturmovik. This unit is available immediately in 42 on the Western Front, where historically it was introduced earlier than on the Eastern Front. I will have, I think, 5 fighters in 42, and I will probably upgrade 3 of them to this, and keep 2 as these guys. Western Allied fighters. Yeah. The big thing is they're nasty. That's what you need to know. You can see initiative is increased, air attack is increased. Initiative is still below German fighters, but air attack is high. Soviet fighters aren't too huge a problem until the Yak-7. Air attack is 44, initiative is 10, so it's very competitive with the BF. Then in 43, we get some upgrades. While no new German fighters are introduced in 43, their prices have been reduced to reflect increasing German armaments production, and their ammo has been increased for balance reasons. Yep, I can see that. Western Allied fighters, Soviet fighters, yeah, I mean, you can just look at initiative and air attack. It's all higher. That's what you need to know, is it's all higher. These guys, I think this is scary, the Yak-3. Look at this guy. Air attack 19 and initiative 11. And the Western fighters, initiative 10, 12, the Mustang shows up. Thunderbolt, air attack of 20. Yeah, have fun with that. Because if you look at, where's the German bombers? Air attack at the highest is 18, and initiative is 11, right? So this fighter's superior, this fighter's superior, this fighter's superior. This fighter is basically equivalent to our BF. So either front you go in, you're going to be dealing with this tough Air Force, an Air Force that can go toe-to-toe with your fighters. And then late war, I want to get this guy because he's got nice initiative and air attack. Yeah, if you look at my BF, air attack is 15 and initiative's 10. So he's competitive, but you got to be careful. And if you go to K, initiative is 13, air attack is 17. So he could still help you quite a bit. And you can see the FW gets an update. Initiative is 12 and air attack is 17. But that's made up for by the fact that the initiative went up. And the ME is like really expensive. You can get an early version of it, but it only has 3 ammo, and that's really dangerous. I wouldn't be flying around with a fighter with 3 ammo. You could get the ME-262A, but come on, 1200 for, that's a Tiger tank. There's no way I can afford a Tiger tank with the Air Force. The BF-109K is the most advanced version of the BF-109, introduced in late 1944. It has outstanding maneuverability, speed, and firepower. It can engage any contemporary fighter or bomber with good success. However, production of this model came too little too late to make a difference for the German war effort. The FW-109D9 is an upgraded version of the FW-190 that focuses more on higher altitude dogfighting. This unit is better suited to engage the fighters with higher initiative. Yep, I would definitely upgrade to that. The M163B Comet is a small jet interceptor that is used with limited success. While it was very fast, it was very fragile and has a very limited flight time. The M262A is the most famous jet fighter of World War II. It completely outclassed all Allied propelled-based aircraft and is equipped with quadruple 30mm Mk108 cannons, which have enough firepower to shoot down even the most heavily armored Allied bombers in one run. Its primary drawback is that it's extremely expensive. Historically, the ME-262A was delayed due to attempts to design a jet bomber or fighter bomber. Its widespread use was limited due to a shortage of jet fuel, which severely limited both training and combat. I will not be able to use it. I can't afford it. Its ammo is going to be less than the F. No, ammo is going to be the same. That's interesting. And then you get into this, and you can see initiative is starting to get high. 14 freaking initiative. And air attack 20. You know, if you look at my planes, the highest it ever gets is with the jet fighter. I will never see higher than 18 initiative, but I'm not doing the Western Front. I'm doing the Soviet Front. Air attack of 20 and initiative 11 and 12. Yeah, I'm gonna have serious problems when these guys show up. There's just no. These guys are bad news. Bombers. The cost for all German bombers have been significantly increased. This is because these units rarely take damage in the early war, and their usefulness is much more limited during the late war, when the Allies have air superiority. Strategic bomber ground defense. In general, the ground defense of strategic bombers is much higher than tactical bombers. This is to simulate the fact that these planes typically flew at a much higher altitude. Heavy caliber AA, such as the 8.8 centimeter flak or the 12.8 centimeter flak, are more effective at shooting down Allied strategic bombers. Bomber naval attack. In general, the naval attack for all bombers has been significantly decreased. Tactical bombers tend to have higher naval attack than strategic bombers. German bomber ammo reduction. The amount of most German bombers has been significantly reduced. Thus, refueling bombers more regularly is much more important. In general, air power should be used at the critical point. And I mentioned at Poznan, and when I did that scenario, and sometimes through other scenarios, I mentioned low fuel, low ammo. You have to refuel them a lot. You can't park them over a location and sit there forever. They're also much more expensive, but I think it's worth it. German tactical bombers. We get this one, soft attack, hard attack, blah blah blah. Then you get a BF, and you can see these stats. The Junker 87 is an amazing weapon during 39 through 42 and a vital part of the success of the German Blitzkrieg campaigns. As long as the player can maintain air superiority, Stukas reign supreme. Use them to blast away enemy artillery, anti-tank guns, and tanks with impunity. Junker 87s, however, are very vulnerable to fighters, so it's imperative to escort them lest they be intercepted and destroyed. The Junker 87B and the Junker 87R receive an increase to hard attack in 1942. That's great for Rudolph. Except that I'll probably just upgrade him to this. The HS-129B1 is designed as an anti-tank tactical bomber. It's more effective than the Junker 87 against hard targets and much more heavily armored. I will not be getting one. The BF-110 is a heavy fighter bomber whose main advantage is its early war tactical flexibility. It can be employed against both air and ground targets, although its performance in both roles is mediocre at best. The BF-110C has somewhat better air attack, but the BF-110D has better fuel. Soft attack, hard attack, and defenses. The BF-110F has the best initiative and defenses of all the models, although it was much more expensive than the other two models. That's why I'm keeping it as a C for now, because it's more important that the air attacks stay high. And when I upgrade, he'll get it back. So he'll get higher defenses and initiative. Yeah, I'm waiting for this version to come out, and I'll upgrade him to that. It'll be expensive, but I think worth it. Tactical bombers. The cost of all the Junker 87 are decreased in 43. The Junker 87G is the best anti-tank tactical bomber of any nation. It was equipped with a dual 37mm cannon that could devastate any allied armor. However, it has the same weakness as earlier Junker 87 models, namely that it is very vulnerable to both anti-aircraft guns and fighters. The usefulness of Stuka starts to decrease from 43 on, and the Allies field increasingly large numbers of decent fighters. Both Soviet and Western Allies fighters will attack Junk 87s covered by fighters. That's why I will only use Rudel in 43 on, and it's 5, just because it's too dangerous to use the other stuff. The HS-129-5B is an excellent anti-tank tactical bomber. While not quite as powerful as the Junker 87G, it is more survivable. All HS-129B1s are automatically upgraded to the H-129B2. I'm not getting one. The BF-110G is a dedicated bomber interceptor. It is designed to be a dedicated bomber interceptor, and any attempts to use it to engage fighters will likely incur huge losses. Historically, this version of the BF-110 was often equipped with rockets that were devastating to slow-moving Allied bombers. The ME-410A is a long-range heavy fighter bomber. While it can engage both air and ground targets, it has the same drawbacks as the BF-110 series, meaning that it's mediocre against both types of targets. I am not getting one, or a BF. I'm not doing any of that junk. Its family with BF series has been removed. FW-190F is an outstanding versatile fighter bomber. It has excellent ground attack potential, good defenses, and can engage weakened Soviet fighters with good results. However, I don't think I'm going to have the prestige for this. German tactical bombers. Cost for the FW-190F is slightly decreased. The FW-190G has better ground attack, defenses, and range than the FW-190F, but it's less effective against air units. Strategic bombers. The Do-117Z is the cheapest of all German strategic bombers, but its offensive stats are lacking. It's most useful for disrupting supplies as opposed to providing suppression. Okay, the reason I got all 3 strategic bombers is I plan on using them differently. Use the Do to drop ammo, so use it against the KV. Use the Junker 88 as a strategic bomber with excellent ground attack. It's fast and can often score kills on tanks and artillery, but is very inexpensive and has low defenses. It's very expensive and has low defenses. I think you use the Junker 88A to do damage to ground units. It's a way to try to finish off a weakened unit, but it doesn't do as much suppression, if that makes sense. And then the He-11H is the most offensive of all early war German bombers. It has decent attack and is resistant to anti-aircraft fire, although it's so vulnerable to fighter attack. You can use this if you want to strategically bomb a location and there's anti-aircraft fire there. He might not take damage. So you can see air defense on this is high. But I think the air defense is pretty good in general. And ground defense is insane. He increased the ground defense a lot. And the He has 25 ground defense. Naval attack is highest on the Junker. Anti-air is best with the He. Like, this guy can take a hit from a fighter. Soft attack is okay. It's in the middle. It's in the middle on hard attack. Its initiative is blah. Not quite as fast. Reasonable fuel. It actually has decent ammo, so that's not bad. The Do-217E is well-rounded, though expensive strategic bomber introduced in 41. It has no main weaknesses. I will upgrade to that. It doesn't. Let's see, it has a lot more fuel, which is insane. It can move more. Its initiative is higher. Its soft attack is higher. Its hard attack is higher. Its anti-air is higher. Better naval attack. Ground defense is amazing. And air defense is really good. I like it. I'm getting one. The He-177A has amazing attack, but is extremely expensive. Historically, this bomber was plagued with mechanical troubles, which is reflected by its low ammo. I will upgrade it, though. Just because the fuel is better, soft attack is incredible, initiative is incredible, hard attack is incredible, it's got good air, anti-air, its ground defense is the best, its air defense is awesome. I'm definitely getting one. I don't care that it's expensive. The Junker 188A is designed as a tough late war strategic bomber. It has the worst attack of the various late war models, but makes up for it with great defenses. So I have an incentive to upgrade this as well. it's not even that expensive, just because it's just gonna survive. And these are their strategic bombers. Miscellaneous changes, blah blah blah. Anyway, that's what I have to say with this mod. You can envision, I'm gonna have 3 strategic bombers. I will have the hero fighter bomber given to me, the junker given to me, and I'll have Rudel. So that's 6 bombers total, and I will have 5 core fighters, and then I'll get some hero fighters later, but they're less important. I'm going to have 5 core fighters by 42 and 6 bombers. So that's 11 planes. And then later on, some planes will get added, but I don't care about those. So I'll have 11 planes. I will have I'll have a pack gun. I'll have an 88 gun, and I will have a Panzer Jaeger that will become a Stug. So I'll have 3 towed anti-tank guns, and then that will become 2 towed anti-tank, and then a mobile anti-tank. And then I will have some of the artillery that does anti-tank. That will be a part of my core, and then I'll have, let's see, I will get a mobile anti-aircraft, probably this one, and then I will upgrade one of my 88s to this guy, and keep the other one as an 88. And then I will have 15 different types of artillery, some of which, like the Stug 4, will serve as anti-tank as well. But about 15 pieces sounds right to me. That exact distribution of it I'll figure out later. I will have 2 recon units, one that's soft dedicated, one that's soft combat. I will never upgrade them. I think this is sufficient, and it also means elite replacements are cheaper on them. All of my SE units will be tanks, and they will get a bonus of 20% extra fuel and ammo. That is a really big deal. So by 43, I should have 6 SE slots just for tanks. And then I will have 4. So by 43, so by 42, when I get my SE tank at 42, I will have 5 SE tanks and 4 tanks that I either acquired or bought. And then that's it. In fact, I only really bought 2 tanks. That's my plan, because you're given so many tanks. So there's that. So I'll have 9 tanks by 42 and 10 tanks by 43. And I think that's enough, because I'm gonna have mobile anti-tank. I'll probably have let me see here. I will probably have like a Stug 4, and I will have a Stug, and I'll have a Martyr 3, and I'll have Stug 3s. I'll probably have like 2 of these, a Martyr, and a Stug 4. I'll have something like 4 mobile anti-tanks, plus, yeah, something like that. 4, maybe 5. I might have 5 mobile anti-tanks. We'll see how that plays out. So that will help complement my tank force, because I don't think I need more than 10 tanks by 40. Yeah, I think 10 tanks by 43 should be enough, especially if I bring anti-tank, mobile anti-tank. And then where was I? Infantry. I will be buying a couple more infantry. I'll probably have something like 12 infantry going into 42, and then I'm going to get a bunch of, eventually as I play through the Grand Campaign, I'm going to get a bunch of infantry that are hero, and I'll probably upgrade those guys to grenadiers, and I'm going to have plenty of infantry. So that's giving you a map of where I'm going. Well, I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you see where I'm going, and I hope you appreciate